This is the October 11th, 2022 regular meeting of the Chatham County Savannah Metropolitan Planning Commission.
The board consists of Mr. Joseph Welch, Chairman, Ms. Karen Jarrett, Vice Chairman, Mr. Travis Coles, Secretary, Dr. McLeaf Watkins, Treasurer. The board members are Ms. Lorraine Bowles, Ms. Elizabeth Epstein, Mr. Joseph Irvine, Mr. Wayne Noah, Mr. Jeff Morticia, Mr. Cedric Coleman, Mr. Dwayne Stevens, Mr. Tom Wildwoody, Mr. Lee Smith, and Mr. Jay Melton. The MPC Executive Director is Melanie Wilson.
Good afternoon. This is the October 11th regular meeting of the Chatham County Savannah Metropolitan Planning Commission. We will pause for an invocation and then have the Pledge of Allegiance. Ask you to all please rise. Mr. Wayne Noah, lead us in prayer. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. For staff, petitioners, members of the public who are participating, our procedures will be as follows, and I ask you to please listen. The agenda is broken down into several parts. First, notices, proclamations, acknowledgements. Next, the consent agenda, which consists of items for which the applicant is in agreement with the staff recommendation, and there are no known objections. This will be followed by regular business, old business, and adjournment. For each agenda item on regular business, the staff will make a presentation. The staff presentation will be followed by a presentation by the petitioner should they elect to do so. The petitioner will be allotted a time frame of no more than 20 minutes. The board may then ask questions of the petitioner or staff for clarification. Afterwards, the floor will be open for public comment. If you wish to comment on the item with the board is considering at the time, members of the public that are in person must fill out a speaker card. If you are here to speak on a topic, you have a speaker card out in the hallway. Please fill that out, the blue card. Okay, and if you wish to comment on the item, the board is considering the time the member of the public that are in person must fill it out. You'll be called when that item is brought up. If you're at home and you're on a computer listening to this meeting, you have a raise your hand feature on your computer. Please push that button, raise your hand feature on your screen. Do not use the feature until the item you want to comment on is being considered. At the appropriate time, you will be recognized and staff will unmute your microphone. At the end of your allotted time, as determined by the chair, your microphone will be muted and the chair will recognize the next speaker. The total public comment time will be equivalent to the petitioner's presentation time. Therefore, it is important that you use the raise your hand feature during the hearing of that item if you want to speak on a petition. Once the floor is closed for public comment on a petition, no additional speakers will be allowed. If you are not certain you want to speak, still use the raise your hand feature on your computer, or if in person, fill out the speaker card. You will have the option to decline when your name is called. After public comment, the petitioner will have the opportunity for rebuttal and then additional needed questions by the board. Finally, the board will take action. Okay. Need approval of the agenda?
Coles moved.
No, it's second.
We'll do a verbal vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We'll go to notice of proclamations and acknowledgements. Today, October 12, 2022, is the Personnel Committee meeting. Today, October 12th at 11:30, we had a Finance Committee meeting. And October 18th, 2022, regular MPC meeting will take place here at 1:30 p.m. Items requested to be removed from the agenda. Item number 5, a map amendment. I'm just going to read them all at one time. We'll vote. Wild Heron Road, rezoned from A1 to RMF 1 and RSF 4. Master Plan, Cottonvale Road. Item 7, Master Plan Amendment, 1901 Benton Boulevard. Item 8, Map Amendment, 362 Fort Argyle Road, rezoned from A1 to IL. Number 9, text amendment, allow cafe in the office districts. And item 10, text amendment, section 7, 8, 7, 9, 7, 10, 7, 11, and 13.5 historic districts. True stucco clarification. So these items are requested to be removed from the agenda. I need a motion.
Coles make the motion to remove items 5 through 10 from the final agenda.
No, it's second.
Take a verbal vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And then we go to items requested to be withdrawn. Item 11, map amendment, 1806 Live Oak Street, rezoned from RSF 5 to TR 2. Need a motion?
Coles move to withdraw item 11.
No, it's second.
Take a verbal vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anybody in the audience on any of those items that will not be taking place today? Okay. Now we go to consent agenda. Approval of the September 6, 2022 brief and regular meeting minutes. Need a motion to approve?
Coles moved.
No, it's second.
Verbal vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item 13, approve the authorized access resolution for business entities to update authorized access for the Truist Treasury Service Bank account. Need a motion?
Coles so moved.
No, it's second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then we go to old business, map amendment, 1712 Ageechee Road.
Mr. Chair, I believe I need to recuse myself. The original property owner, I've consulted on this property, and I don't feel it's proper for me to act on it, so I will recuse myself.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Excuse me, can you guys remember to turn your mics on when you speak? Okay.
He had it on. It is a
Can we
little
move
lower.
it forward? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Nirav Gandhi, MPC staff. I have a petition here for a rezoning for 1712 Ogeechee Road. This was previously heard by the Commission at their August 16th meeting. The petitioner was asked to work with MPC staff on finding a possible alternative for their desired use of the property. We did work with them and were unable to come to an agreement on that, and so they are back here to ask for their original petition of rezoning this area from TR1 to TC1. So just to give you a reminder of where we are, this is kind of up Ogeechee Road. If you passed Victory, over here, there is a church across the street, and the rest of this area is fully residential in pretty much every direction here. So the area in question is right here. It is a corner lot, zone TR1. And got a few pictures of the lot here. It is rather small, only 0.11 acres. Pull up our report here. So let me, aerial view is what I wanted. There it is. So the subject property is an undeveloped parcel northeast of the intersection of Ogeechee Road and Lavinia Street. Lavinia Street provides vehicular access for this property. It has a width of 31 feet, and there are 2 lanes there on Ogeechee Road. So the zoning was changed here from multifamily residential back to TR1 with the new zone in 2019. So it did previously exist as a multifamily area. So let's see here. The area has access to the public water and sewer and stormwater systems. There's public transit here on Ogeechee Road. The comprehensive land use plan designates this property as a planned development. So the current land use designation is consistent with this zoning district, which was of course for this entire residential property. It's a residential plan development. So as I said, it exists currently as a TR1 district for traditional residential. The allowed uses here are typically residential, but there are a few smaller non-residential uses that are allowed as well. However, the applicant would like to rezone this to TC1. His desired use of it is an indoor sports. However, I want to remind the commission that when we look at zoning districts changing, we need to look at all of the possible uses that could come with a zoning district change. Not to say that it's irrelevant what he's planning to do with it, but we have to look beyond that to see what possible future uses could be of that property and if it can sustain those uses. So one of the major things that we are concerned about with this property is a commercial facility hosting the necessary parking. This is a really small parcel, as you can see, like I said, 0.11 acres. With the amount of building that a commercial use would probably need, it seems unlikely to us that parking spaces necessary for whatever the use would be will fit on this property. In addition, as I said, this is a very residential area, and in fact, on this vicinity map, I can kind of show you, but basically everything on this map is zoned residentially. This would be a definite case of spot zoning to rezone this to TC1 because it would be much more commercial oriented and would this area is not really built for that kind of an impact. Let's see here. The services are available for the uses and densities that are permitted in this proposed zoning district. However, as I said, it should be noted that there are a few infrastructure problems, as in the roads and the parking situation. So just to sort of sum that up, the petitioner is requesting to rezone from TR1 to TC1 from residential to commercial. That category includes non-residential uses that are compatible with the residential character of the neighborhoods, but it also contains a lot of uses that we don't feel are compatible with the residential use here. As I said, there is a church across the street, but it is the only non-residential use in this entire neighborhood here. Our recommendation, based on our concerns and character of the area, is denial for this petition.
Thank you, sir. Is the petitioner here?
He is.
You like to come forward, sir? State your name for the record. And I'll allow you 10 minutes if need be.
Only 10. Richmond Ferguson. I'm here to on this rezoning application, and Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just like to go over a few things. Point of order: the last report denied TC1, but it gave me TN1, which I'm willing to accept, and that's my point. Which report are we talking about here?
Can I clarify for the?
Yeah.
Please.
We offered TN1 as a possible alternative if he was exploring something like a museum, which was one of the original things he pitched. However, Mr. Ferguson was, when I spoke with him, determined to do the indoor sports thing, which is not allowed in the TN1 district. So it basically would either need to be rezoned to a full commercial district, or he would not be allowed to use that in that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, another point of order. I don't remember discussing that with Mr. Gandhi. It's the proposal can't get this mouse here to sit, yeah. Is one click or two? One click or two clicks?
It's 2 clicks.
Two clicks, okay. The proposal was to, this building was last used as a Mary's Beauty Shop, which is basically commercial in nature. Now, it's a historic dwelling, but it comes under the outbuilding, which means at one point, this property had three buildings. So it was zone RM 25, which is one of your top zoning, and then it went down to 0 with TR1. I think it would fit in very well with the area. And for the benefit of, the mission is to assist the incidence of incarceration and conflict amongst youth. And we also present a history of the College Brownsville area. Since I made this proposal, I am on the board in Stonecrest Fest, and the drone soccer has really been taken off real good. So we anticipate putting in a drone soccer practice facility, which requires a 30 by 40 building. And I'll show you what it looks like. Sorry about I had this on a PowerPoint, but I was only notified at 10 o'clock today that it's
Which file are you trying to open?
yeah, Ravinia, yeah.
One that says
Yeah, it's not on the
Lavinia?
PowerPoint. Yeah.
that one?
That's it.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay.
They said that they weren't in agreement with me, which I disagree with. This is a concept that I submitted that evidently, they didn't really consider. Now, the building up here, it's 30 by 40, which will go good with the smaller building. Parking will be sufficient. I also put in an application to acquire the 2 lots which are vacant, trash all over the place, and it's owned by the city. I didn't get a response on that. And, I can put in 6 affordable housing very easily. Now, Lavinia is a very small street, and I think this would really improve the area. I've lived in this area practically all my life, and I still live on 36th Street, so I'm very familiar. Also, on the Kyler Park, when I was an appraiser, I appraised about 7 of those houses around the park, and I think that the vacant spots will do excellent for small contractors. That one went over very well. Now, what can we do with this parcel? Okay, this is what a drone soccer field looks like. It's a net. Yeah. Sorry, I'm having a little problem with this mouse here. Okay, it's 10 by 20 by 10. It's one of the fastest growing esports in the area. We just had a tournament in Stonecrest, and they've got a team, young team, and they wind up beating Alabama, you know, not Georgia and Auburn. But through this program, there's a lot of interest in Auburn University because they're one of the few, well, the only school in the Southern Hemisphere with an airport. So they train people with the drone soccer program. In addition, drone soccer, drone periods will become regulated by the government. Soon, it should be probably next year sometime. So that would be a good thing if we can get the kids involved. All right, let me see. You know, this is a team sport, and as you can see, this was in Birmingham at the World Game. They were first demonstrating it. In 2025, drone soccer will be featured at the Seoul World Games. So we're trying to get some kids up to speed. Now, this is a team sport, and you see the batteries, and the different batteries, it's all part of the team. Normally, you would have 10 people on the team, and they would build the drone. You would have a flyer, striker, and I think it would benefit Savannah greatly. Education-wise, this would work through the Board of Education because the Beach High, Woodville, they've got a little program where what we will do is try to bring these kids after school, and I'm talking about Kyla Brownsville primarily, but this is open to everybody. But, you know, African-American males are lacking in STEM program, and our mission is to upgrade that skill.
Your time's about running up there, sir.
Okay. Yeah, this side street. Yeah. You know, this is, you know, I've been for this board before. You know, I used to live in Metropolitan, Midtown now. Is that you let garbage like this permeate the area, and everybody think, oh, it looks bad. It does look bad. This lowers the price, and we consider this an economic obsolescence. So, you know, this is the corner right here. I took a picture of where my building is, and that's the way it looks a lot of times. So this is you know, we can recreate that whole street into a livable area. Now, for some reason, someone don't seem to like the idea, but I think it'd be good as far as benefiting the whole Kyla Brownsville.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your
Yeah.
presentation. Is there any questions for petitioner staff? Is anybody in the audience here on this topic? Okay,
Chair, if I may ask a question?
yes.
If I remember correctly, did I hear that TN1 was offered under specific conditions?
So just to clarify again, when we originally spoke to Mr. Ferguson, he had a few different ideas, one of them being a museum, like a small museum. That is something that could work under TN1 zoning. So we offered that as an alternative when we first brought this petition to you. However, by that time, he had decided firmly he wanted to do the indoor sports thing, which is not allowed in TN1. That would have to be in TC1 or a higher commercial zone, which is why we came back basically with this. But if he still wishes to rezone it to TN1, I mean, he won't be able to do what he's talking about here, but he does have the support of the staff for that zoning.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff or petitioner? Then I put them,
Just for clarity, did we receive any,
I didn't receive any correspondence about this.
none whatsoever?
No, sir.
I'll look for a motion then.
Sorry, Chair, I have another question, please.
That's okay.
Is there any indication that there are organizations or individuals who support the project?
I don't have any, and I just want to also make clear, we're very in support of the idea of the drone soccer thing, just we're talking about rezoning a very small property that doesn't have the right infrastructure to support commercial. It is sort of irrelevant in that case exactly what is going to happen there at the moment. Because in the long run, we don't feel that it fits our comprehensive plan or, you know, residential character of the neighborhood.
Ms. Jarrett?
Karen Jarrett here. Isn't there a letter in the package from the
Oh.
Collier-Brownsville Neighborhood Association?
I'm so sorry
That says
about
that they
that.
are opposed to rezoning to TC1?
I'm sorry about that. We got that a few months ago.
Thank you.
It slipped my mind, but it is here.
Mr. Wayne Stevens?
Excuse me, I just want to, I guess, state for the record, as staff just mentioned, I am very supportive of the general idea, but again, facing the zoning scenario that we have here in this current environment, and the impact of the other potential uses that could come with the zoning of this potential, of this property, I really struggle to support, to support anything other than staff's recommendation.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wayne Noah?
While I support the idea, I would like to make a motion to accept staff's recommendation and deny this petition.
Coles, second.
We'll take a vote. Ms. Maureen Bowles?
Is it a yes?
Mr. Travis Coles?
Yes.
Ms. Elizabeth Epstein?
Yes.
Is Mr. Irvin online? No. Ms. Karen Jarrett?
Yes.
Mr. Melder online?
No, he sent his comments, which I passed out to you.
Okay. Mr. Wayne Noah?
No, he sent the.
Yes.
Mr. Jeff Nutrika?
Yes.
Michael Kager's not here. Mr. Dwayne Stevens?
Yes.
Wait a second. He did say.
Dr. Watkins isn't here. And Mr. Woodward? Tom?
Yeah, see,
Yes.
And Mr. Welch, yes. Motion passes.
with the TN,
Denial.
that's it.
Thank you.
So that's the item. The one.
Good
Now we
afternoon.
go to regular business. Sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, Melissa Leto, MPC staff. This item is was here on May 24th for your approval. It was continued for 90 days so the petitioner could reach out to the communities involved. Let's see. The petitioner met on 4 occasions with different community members in the area. MPC staff also met on Friday, September 16th with the residents of the adjacent property on Ted Newton Avenue. The subject property is located northeast of the intersection of John Carter Road and Old River Road and abuts Interstate 95 to the east. The property is currently vacant. This map on the screen, let's see if we can get it a little bigger, indicates the boundaries between the light industrial zoned area and the proposed heavy industrial portion. The portions colored in gray would be the upland portion for the proposed heavy industrial, which would be, they are proposing the heavy industrial to be 513 acres within a 632 acre parcel. And the thick yellow line near the single-family residences off of Ted Newton Avenue would have a 100-foot buffer, including a berm and an 8-foot high fence. And this is indicated over here where there's a thicker yellow line. And then as it goes up, the petitioner is proposing a 50-foot buffer on the remaining eastern portion of the parcel. The range of uses permitted under the current and proposed zoning districts, light industrial and heavy industrial, are similar in uses except for 4 additional uses that are allowed and only in the heavy industrial classification. And these are intensive manufacturing, solid waste and industrial landfill facility, mulch or compost processing, class 3, 4, or 5, and waste incinerator uses. The petitioner is requesting 3 out of those 4 to be removed, with the remaining 1 being intensive manufacturing, which is a requirement for them to, as part of their industrial park proposal. The role of CETA is to seek out economic development opportunities that benefit Savannah, Chatham County, and the region. The county and city have envisioned the proposed industrial park will generate jobs as well as other revenue and opportunities to lead in the areas of innovation that will benefit the community at large. The present zoning pattern is sparse and includes a mix of heavy industrial zoning classifications as well as single-family and multifamily classifications. The large tracts of heavy industrial classifications have intended to be used toward manufacturing, which is in alignment with the proposed industrial park. There are single-family and multifamily classifications mixed into the development pattern as the area is generally rural in nature, and these residential uses will be buffered from the subject property. The future land use map designation is planned development, which would permit the proposed planned development industrial park with the requested portion of IH zoning classification and would align with staff's request to bring a master plan back to MPC for approval. In conclusion, the subject property was planned to be an industrial park through the partnership of Chatham County and the City of Savannah. The front portion of the property is currently classified as heavy industrial. However, the large parcel in the rear is currently zoned light industrial. The parcel to the rear is the subject parcel requesting to be rezoned heavy industrial, with a portion remaining of light industrial. This would allow CETA to market the individual sites to potential businesses with the knowledge that the use would be permitted. The manufacturing center would be required to go through the subdivision process once the petitioner begins to designate parts of the property to future manufacturing tenants. The light industrial district includes similar uses as the proposed IH zoning district, and I'm going to show that and give you a list. So here are the four that I spoke about earlier, with intensive manufacturing being the one that they want from a heavy industrial. And they are allowing the three, requesting them to be removed. And then these are a list of uses that are in light industrial, but are also in heavy industrial that the petitioner is requesting to exclude from their proposal. So college, university, seminary, consumer, fireworks, retail sales facility, fuel, gas station, crematorium, event venue, dry cleaner, laundry neighborhood, distillery, craft, bar, tavern, nightclub, restaurant, food truck park, retail consumption dealer, on-premise consumption of alcohol, a winery, a cidery, brewery, micro, vehicle towing and impound facility, watercraft sales, repair and service, all adult-oriented businesses, boatyard, watercraft launch ramp, solid waste and industrial landfill facility, mulch or compost processing, Class 2, and Class 3, 4, or 5, and Class 6. Recycling collection facility, waste incinerator, solid waste transfer station, airport, airfield, heliport, and a rail yard. Based on the existing zoning pattern and character of the area, as well as the review criteria, staff recommends approval of the request to rezone approximately 513 acres out of the total 631.51 acres of the parcel, with the remaining 118 acres be light industrial. And there are conditions to have a master plan be brought back to the Metropolitan Planning Commission for approval. We also, staff suggests warehousing be located farther away from the residential zone parcels when they are thinking about their master plan. That's all for me. The applicant is here for any questions, and I'm here as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The applicant like to come forward. State your name for the record there, Mr. Yellen, and have 20 minutes if need be, sir. And I let it be known that there's a lot of people to speak on these items, on this item, excuse me. And I welcome you here and thank you for being here and participating. You can narrow this down if you wanted to, if you want to have one person speak for all y'all or a couple of you, or you're all welcome to speak each, okay? Good afternoon, Mr. Yellen.
Sorry, once again, Harold Yellen for the petitioner, Savannah Economic Development Authority, also known as CEDA. With me today is Mr. Tripp Tollison, who's the CEO of CEDA, Jesse Dillon, Vice President of Business Development, and Mr. Jason Chambliss, who's our project engineer. My comments will actually be relatively brief. As already noted, the subject property is 630 acres. Of the 630 acres, 243 acres are wetlands. Approximately 39% of the site is wetlands. This property is commonly known as the Savannah Chatham Manufacturing Center. The center was acquired by CEDA in 2016 with SPLOST funds. This site was established for the sole purpose of creating a manufacturing center. The existing zoning classification right now for the entire site is industrial. It's light industrial. As a result of NUZO in 2019, it went from being an IL to a PIL. And under PIL, there are some light manufacturing, but primarily that zoning district is geared for warehousing and some support services. As the county and the city becomes more attractive for manufacturing, and it is, it's critical that CEDA be able to compete with other cities for manufacturing opportunities with wage scales that we believe will benefit our entire community. We researched NUZO And honestly, it's sometimes difficult to tell when a use comes in whether it is permitted or not permitted under a light industrial or a heavy industrial zoning classification. We do want to be in a position, in order to be competitive, that we have a pad-ready site and that we know with certainty whether a prospective use will fit in to heavy industrial or light industrial. We know that all squares are rectangles. We don't know that all rectangles are squares. And sometimes the use that comes in, it's very difficult to tell where it belongs. So the petition today is to rezone not all of the property. It's to rezone just a portion of the property from light industrial to heavy industrial so that this manufacturing center will have the benefit of both zoning classifications. Our original petition, I want to be clear, did call for the rezoning of the entire parcel. That has since been amended. We amended our petition based on meetings with MPC staff, and we amended our petition based on meetings with the neighborhood. As a result of our meeting with staff, and we met on 2 occasions, we did eliminate 29 permitted uses in the IH. And Melissa went over all of those. I'm going to just skip through these. I don't need to repeat all 29, but literally we went through, staff said, what do you don't need? We're happy to comply, and as a result, 29 uses were immediately eliminated from the IH zoning classification. As a result of our meeting with neighbors, and we met between myself and members of CETA staff, we met on 4 different occasions. We have committed to reduce the acreage to be rezoned so that only a portion of the park, and that's the part that is located next to residential, will remain light industrial. And hopefully, we're all looking at the same thing. You can see what is in yellow. The yellow outline is in fact going to remain light industrial, which is what it is now. So there's no change to the entire tract that's covered by yellow. Please also keep in mind that everything you see in green is a wetland and will not be developed. So this plat is designed to show you that everything to the residential side that you see in yellow will remain exactly as it is now, light industrial, but with additional buffers that are not even there now. We have decided to increase the buffers that are there now, and these are additional buffers more than what is required by the City of Savannah zoning ordinance. We've increased our buffer from 40 to 50 feet, and hopefully it's maybe too small to see, 50-foot protective buffer along the eastern boundary. And then we increased our buffer to 100 feet along the portion of the property that we think is adjacent to residential properties. And you can also see where there's sort of a 3-legged petal, flower petal. That's basically wetlands. It's part of the buffer. We've called it the 100-foot, but you see it's actually bigger than 100 feet. Also, I learned last week, I did not know this, but apparently neighbors requested that we do additional planting, and I thought the planting would take place sometime after an approval. But the red dots actually represent where CETA has planted 20 10-foot cypress trees. This was done at the request of neighbors. It was done now, it was done in good faith, and those trees are up right now. We do believe, as a result of our meeting with MPC staff and with neighbors, that we have a better petition and we have a better plan as a result of all these meetings. We are grateful for the MPC staff recommendation for approval. We are aware that there is a condition that we need to come back for master plan approval. We're here today to say that we agree. We will in fact come back for master plan approval. We agree with this condition. So we thank you for your consideration of this petition, and we respectfully request approval of staff recommendation. Mr. Tollison, Ms. Dillon, Mr. Chambliss, myself, we're all available to answer any questions that y'all may have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Yellen. Ms. Jarrett?
Has the project gone through the development of regional impacts review with the state?
The property was rezoned back in 2009. That's when the property was rezoned to light industrial, pre-NUZO light industrial. I suspect that a lot of the things that you mentioned in the pre-meeting were done then, and we'll pull the package. We don't mind, incidentally, coming back with information when we come back with our master plan. It's when it would be expected. If a DRI is required, we often have properties rezoned subject to DRI approval, and this would be one of them as well.
Okay, the DRI approval shouldn't precede the rezoning?
Typically not. It's a condition of. We know that we can't pull a permit without it.
All right. Can you tell me if any analysis has been done, any speculation has been done about the impact to the roadway network?
The right-of-way, you asked in the pre-meeting about a traffic impact analysis. We're going to check and see if one was done in 2009. That was when this property was, in its entirety, rezoned to industrial. That would likely have been the time that it was done. But now we're here back 13 years later. I suspect a TIA would be different now than it would have been 13 years ago. So we're prepared to do it all over again. If there is one, we'll present it. If there wasn't one, we'll do it again.
All right. And for staff, future land use. So this is in the area where it shows planned development.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Anybody else? Any commissioner?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Yellen. We'll open it up to the public. I'll call your name and you'll have 3 minutes each. Joanne Cottle.
I think that we decided that I would go first. My name is Amanda Wilson, and I have community members that have donated time to me.
Okay, that's fine. If you just state your name for the record, how much time do you need, ma'am?
Probably about 15 minutes.
That'll be fine, thank you. And just state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Amanda Wilson, and I live on John Carter Road. I would like to go over the staff report that Ms. Pauletto just kind of went over and point out some indiscrepancies that our community felt like it was important to bring to y'all, because we know that y'all use this to look at for your recommendation of whether to approve or to deny. The first thing I would like to look at is on page 2, and where the petitioner said that they bought the property for the purpose of manufacturing, and at the bottom of the page it says for the property to have manufacturing uses within the center, the petitioner would need to have the property rezoned from light industrial to heavy industrial. And back in 2018, Trip Tollison, the president of CETA, asked Pat Monahan to respond to an email about some concerns that our community had in regard to this site, and just kind of explaining what their intentions were, why they bought the property. And it says in the email, which I can provide for you, that CETA bought the Newton track because of its size and because of the existing zoning already IL. So they purchased the site based on the fact that it was IL and that they could use it for IL. So if you turn to page 3, I would like to go over the land use chart. It says that to the north is undeveloped, to the south is undeveloped, to the east is single family, multifamily, and to the west is vacant. Let me see, can y'all hear me? I'm pretty loud. So if you can see right here, this is the site.
Hold on.
You're gonna have to talk, nobody online can hear you. I'm sorry. Maybe if I put this here. Now, do you think people? Okay, so here's the site, and as you can see to the south, this is all of us. This is all of our community, right here. And to the west, this is all of our community. This is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of family homes. This is multifamily coming in. To the south here is New Hampstead. This is 11,000 homes that are coming in, that are slated to come in. And as you pointed out, this site is, most of it wants to be rezoned to heavy industrial, and most of this, a lot of this in this area around here is wetlands. On page 5.
Take the microphone to you.
sorry.
Thank you. It's okay.
On page 5, if you could flip with me down to the review criteria, sustainability. The question is heavy industrial more suitable than IL, given the fact that there are thousands and thousands of homes surrounding this area? Is heavy industrial suitable? I would say that it's not suitable. Also down here, it talks about in the comment, the range of uses permitted under the current and proposed zoning districts have similar uses. That's true, similar for industry, and 4 additional uses. Those 4 additional uses in heavy industrial, those are very important to note. They are intensive manufacturing, solid waste, mulch, and waste incinerator. And like staff suggested, when we are considering rezoning, we have to consider what that rezoning would allow in. Now, the petitioner did eliminate 3 of those 4 things, but they left intensive manufacturing. So we can conclude that that is what they are looking to do, intensive manufacturing in a residential area. According to the city's website, intensive manufacturing is uses that include but are not limited to the manufacturing, processing, or storage of acetylene, lime, cement, gypsum, chlorine, corrosive acid, fertilizer, insecticide, disinfectants, poisons, explosives, paint, lacquer, varnish, petroleum products, coal products, plastic and synthetic resins, radioactive materials. This can also include asphalt batching, chemical batching, paper manufacturing, plastic and rubber manufacturing, smelting, and I'll get to that, animal slaughtering, oil refinery, and includes bulk storage of chemicals. So again, is that appropriate for a residential area? Now, as far as suitability, Mr. Yellen met with our community, and he told us that unfortunately, CETA isn't really concerned about the suitability of our community. They're concerned about the suitability for CETA and bringing in jobs and in the community at large. It will bring in about, CETA is supposed to bring in about 1,800 jobs. But what about the thousands and thousands of homes that are there and the families that are there? What about the suitability for us when we're considering rezoning? If you turn with me to page 6, whether the proposed rezoning district addresses the specific need of the county and the city. Again, it will bring in jobs and the community at large, but its suitability for us who are already there, who've lived out there for 30 years, it's not suitable for what is already there. And as staff pointed out, is we need to look at the comprehensive plan, and it doesn't follow along with the comprehensive plan. Now we talk about compatibility. In the report, it says, will this adversely affect the existing properties nearby? The comment says, this rezoning of this parcel may adversely affect the existing zoning, existing surrounding uses. The property would have a 100-foot buffer from residential uses to the south, which, keep in mind, on page 3, it said there was nothing to the south. However, the subject property is directly adjacent to multifamily. So the question is not, may it affect us around there? It will definitely affect us, and actually it already has. According to the city's definition of a heavy industrial district, it is one that generates noise, particulate matter, fumes, and other nuisances that are not contained on site. So, back to this map, I would like to talk about what the proposed light industrial site would just be right here. The rest of this is heavy industrial. All of this is heavy industrial. The buffer that the petitioner has proposed is right there, that tiny green dot. That's the 100-foot buffer. Okay, and then along this border, along this southern border, is a 50-foot buffer and 20 trees. Do you think that 20 trees and a tiny little 100-foot buffer right there is going to protect these children, these families, from a zoning district that allows for the max pollution? Air pollution can travel, and particulate matter can travel up to 30 miles. Oops, sorry, here I go again. Okay, and then you might say, well, certainly CETA would be responsible, even if they did get the heavy industrial zoning approved, they would be responsible, and they would not bring in something that would cause harm to all of us that live there. However, I would like to let you know that the very first facility that is going in is an e-waste facility. This e-waste facility takes electronic chips and components and motherboards from scrap electronics. It smelts them in a smelter, in an oven, and it has the capacity, and I have the air permit with me if you would like to see that. It has the capacity of being a Title V polluter, which is the max polluter allowed by the government. Now, they have applied for a synthetic minor permit, which knocks them down just a little bit, but however, even under that synthetic minor permit, they are allowed to put out 10 pounds of particulate matter an hour. And this is right here on top of us. And this was allowed in by the city manager under light industrial. This was allowed in under light industrial. I don't understand how that got approved, and it may need to be reconsidered. So I can only imagine if CETA is allowing this to come in under light industrial, what's going to come in under heavy industrial. If you flip with me to page 7, and we talk about the consistency, it says whether the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's not. It says in the comment that this designation is planned development and the proposed is planned industrial. Well, just because the words use plan does not mean that it fits within the plan, the comprehensive plan. This is the future land use map. We are planned development.
You got about 3 more minutes, ma'am.
Okay, planned development is for residential, commercial, civic uses, such as residential, commercial, recreational components, civic amenities, town centers, and existing PUDs. Planned development is 2 different categories from industrial. Here's industrial, here is planned development. It's 2 different categories. Also, the future land use map. Okay. Also, the future land use map. Sorry, here we go. That's future land use map. The character map has us as suburban residential. Suburban residential is for residential. Also, City Code 517.2 of the comprehensive plan says industrial districts are allowed only in the future land use category, industrial light and industrial heavy. Here's the future land use map, the designated area for industrial heavy, okay? This is where we are. It's not designated there, and the staff said, we need to look at the plan when we're considering rezoning. This is us. There are areas up here along Jimmy DeLoach that is for light industrial, but not where we are, not in the middle of a neighborhood. If you go to reasonable use, reasonable use says that there is reasonable, they can use it under the current zoning. The property has reasonable use. If you go to public service, adequate public service, it says that adequate services are available. That's not the case. When this property was annexed, it divided up John Carter up into 3 different municipalities, a 3-mile road, 3 different municipalities, 4 different times. We have had problems with delayed emergency services coming out. We have had problems with delayed fire coming out. We've had problems with policing, road repairs, and drainage. 90% of my property was underwater for over a year because of improper drainage. That was not done. The study was not done. The land use study that you referred to says that it will not create any kind of adverse effects, any kind of drainage problems. That's not the case, and I'm sure y'all have been supplied photos of us being underwater. Our road looked like an actual river. I was 90% of my property, except for my house, my driveway, and the pool area was underwater for a year.
Your time is up, ma'am.
Can anyone donate their time to me, 3 minutes for closing?
Could you give me your name, please?
Yes.
Who?
Amanda Wilson.
Hold on. Whose name are we forfeiting here?
Rick Buckley was one. She could have my time.
Or actually, I would like for you to talk about the traffic. I'll take Blake's if that's okay,
Sherry Bennett was the person that initially, Terry Bennett was the person that
No, you need the
originally.
question. Okay, so finishing up, policy analysis on page 7. A heavy industrial zoning, it says would ensure that any manufacturing can come in. Again, we need to consider what can come in when we rezone. Any manufacturing company can come in. A heavy industrial district in our community abutting residential, going over this, is not suitable to the area, does not meet the needs of all, especially the area residents, is not compatible and will adversely affect nearby property, is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, does not have adequate public service. Given all of these facts, plus the fact that the property has reasonable use under the current zoning, a rezoning to heavy industrial is not absolutely necessary and will only cause more harm to the surrounding area and the homes and the families. I ask the commission to please deny the rezoning request and please protect the hundreds and hundreds of families that live out there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Laura Checketts. Did you forfeit your name?
I did not.
You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
I probably don't need the whole 3 minutes.
That's okay, you have 3.
Amanda covered some of the points that I was going to cover, but I think looking at the land use maps before and with the new updated plan 2040, the character area map and the future land use map are not consistent with what's planned there. I know that once those are in place, I mean, it says in Plan 2040, it doesn't override any existing zoning. So we know it's not gonna go back and rewrite the light industrial. And since that's how it is, we can try to go forward without hard feelings. But I recently moved out to that area with my husband. We just built a home, we have children, we're planning to be there for the rest of our lives. And I ask that the inconsistent behavior is how I see it, that it was inconsistently put in, the light zoning was granted inconsistent with what should have been according to the proposed maps and the policies that had been accepted. I ask that that inconsistency please not be made worse by allowing in things that could be more grievous and harmful to our families. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Cheryl Sanderlin. So they gave their time.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, 3 minutes. State your name for the record.
Thank you. And I'm also speaking for Harold Hester and Ira Abbott. Please excuse me, I have a paralyzed vocal cord, so sometimes I'll stutter. I live the closest, I have the most impact. I'm the home that you see. Right there, that little red dot. And if you, I know we're zoning from IL to IH, but I have to tell you a little bit about the history because I've been there 31 years. In 2016, CETA purchased the 631 acres for development, and in 2018, they began clearing it. Approximately 300 acres of the former International Paper timberland. A few months later, as you can see by the pictures, and if you've got the slideshow that we presented in 2A of the flooding, the flooding began in our area. We started contacting the president of CETA, the county, the city, the commissioners, the aldermen, anyone we could find to contact. We got some response, but not a lot. We got one meeting out of it. Finally, through a contact with a family member, an employee of the engineering company was helping us, then it stopped. We were told 2 of the neighbors had blocked an area to their homes to stop their flooding, and it was creating ours, which was not the entire problem. And honestly, I didn't blame them because they were flooding also. I have lived on this property for 30 years and never flooded, not even during a hurricane. Pine trees were removed that drink 75 gallons of water a day from under the ground. Culverts were busted, land cleared, ditches were blocked. The drainage to the Little Geechee Basin, which is where all of this drains, was not cleared. The one key to all this was that CETA was clearing the land around us. If the clearing of one piece of property could create all of this in a matter of months, we were dreading what was to come. We requested a drainage plan from CETA, Thomas & Hutton, Lee Smith for this area, and one could not be provided. Myself and area neighbors have spent thousands of dollars rebuilding our roads, which are not city or county maintained, and repairing the damage. My 85-year-old father, which is in this room, could not even use his septic tank because groundwater was pouring in so fast we had to put a pump in it so he could use it. Finally, approximately a month ago, after 4 years of trying to get help, we had a meeting at Thomas & Hutton in regards to water issues that CETA arranged for us. The meeting extended an invitation to 2 households. The county engineer, the county drainage engineer, Thomas Hutton, and CETA were present. They have finally realized there's a big issue in this area and are in the early stages of a multi-county regional scope. It's finally undeniable that too much development has taken place without the proper drainage control and infrastructure in place. We have over 200 apartments coming within 1,000 feet of my home. We have 11,000 homes under development across the street from my home, which is the New Hampstead development. And then there's also, if you've driven out there recently, a multitude of commercial businesses under construction, all with a drainage plan just being started. Then this part is just the scope. Then there's the study, then the plan of action. At what point do you say, maybe we put the cart before the horse? It's a famous saying of my husband's, and slow down some before we get a drainage plan. It was indicated in the meeting for our community of about 500 homes, and soon to be more, that we needed to think long-term, 10, 20, maybe even 30 years before the water issues will be diagnosed and resolved. Well, y'all, I'm 60. I'll be 90 by then. That won't help me much. So industrial light was difficult to fathom with these flooding issues. This neighborhood's in a lot of trouble. If we have to deal with all this, with heavy industrial coming and what it may do to our drainage system, without the Little Geechee being ready. So, as mentioned earlier, and I think this gentleman over here mentioned it, the potential impact that may come is what we have to look for. Now, this part, and I apologize ahead of time if I do, if you could be in my home, and some people in this room that are on the MP staff have been, I may actually start crying. I'm here speaking for myself, my neighbors, and my 85-year-old father, my 79-year-old neighbor that lives in another house, my 68-year-old neighbor that lives in another house, and a new resident that just moved in that unfortunately can't speak a lot of English, and that moved in our neighborhood because they needed a quiet environment for their daughter that's disabled and can't have a lot of stimulation. My home and the other 4 homes are the closest to this massive project. This is my home and my neighborhood within the community that's here supporting all of this. My front door is 80 feet. That's twice the length of this room from the CETA property. And they've graciously agreed to another 100 feet. So we're looking at what? At the most 5 lengths the size of this room to not build something. We moved here 30 years ago for the quiet, peaceful country environment to raise my daughter. This development, without exaggeration, has engulfed my time and destroyed my home. And if you look in that pamphlet we sent out, you can see me standing on the berm they built, looking at my home so you can see how close it is. This battle's consumed 4 years and hundreds of hours of my life. I have had to learn what the MPC means. I have had to learn what zoning laws are. I've had massive emails, massive phone calls, text messages, meetings, researching, knocking on the doors. Thank God with the help of all of our neighbors here that are in danger too. And so far, it seems like it's for nothing. Not only have I flooded and have drainage problems, I will never be able to have peace and quiet that I used to have. After 30 years, I now already hear the interstate from the trees being removed. When the light industrial is built at the spot next to my home, which they graciously gave us, I do appreciate that. And then even more extreme, if the rest of the site goes to heavy industrial, we will lose all of our privacy. We'll no longer have deer playing in our yard because my yard will be lit up like a Christmas sky. There's no way that you can put parking lot lights, building lights, cars will run all day long, doors will slam. As close as I am, I will hear people talking in the parking lot of this site. Every contact and meeting with CETA, just so you'll know, those 4 meetings that they keep referring to, were instigated by our community, not them. We could not get anyone to meet with us until here recently. And it was not postponed. The first meeting was not postponed so that they could meet with us. The first meeting was postponed because the signage for the meeting was put 1/3 of a mile down my dirt road across 2 pieces of private property behind a hill on their property to notify all the neighbors that this was being rezoned from IL to IH. Had I not got out with the help of another neighbor here and pounded on doors and made the rest of our community aware of it, we may not have known it was even being rezoned.
Your time is up, ma'am.
Okay, may I have 1 more minute?
1 minute.
This means that my house is close as 4 times the length of this building. My daughter will not be able to move back home as her reward for graduating medical school, which is what she wanted, was to move back here and raise her kids where she grew up, and we were going to move to another place. My home of 30 years is gone, that I've worked my entire life and had to sacrifice for a corporation to create jobs for, yes, the community, but I've had to sacrifice my home for the good of all of that. Where does that seem fair? Put yourself in my front yard and look at that every day. I won't be able to sell it. I won't be able to rent it. And I damn sure don't want to live in it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Any questions from any commissioner for this lady? Next, Jerry, is it Bogus? Bogus? Yeah, 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commission and Chairman. Just to give everyone some perspective about the size of this industrial park, Mitsubishi is 330,000 square feet of building area. Gulfstream is 750,000 square feet. This site is 3.5 million. That is over 4 times the size of Gulfstream. I don't see how, in good conscience, 3.5 million square feet of heavy industry can be allowed next to residential, because a heavy industrial zone allows for highest amount of noise, pollution, and that is why heavy industrial districts like the port are where they are. Myself, I spent 20 years in the United States Marine Corps. Right now, as many of you know, you've heard all the whatever about the water. Well, I was stationed there from 1979 through 1983. So the probability of me being affected already is already pretty high. And I'm also 100% disabled now. I'm blessed to be here. 3 years ago, we had property in Port Wentworth, and I had been there from '99 up until then. I served on the Planning Commission board there in Port Wentworth for about 18 years. Up until the point where a development came in and they wanted to bring in warehouses. Well, most of Port Wentworth now is warehouses. The last one was built and is going to be built at least about 20 feet from my home there. At that time, we made a decision to move or look to live elsewhere. And that decision led us to 347 John Carter Road. And now this, the impact of light to heavy. Light to heavy. Why is there a light and heavy? Because one is more impactful. That is what that means. It's not complicated. I don't believe any of us would choose to have a lot of cancer over a little cancer. We would rather have no cancer. This is already light industry. I'm asking you all this afternoon to have a little compassion. I understand all of the other things that may or have been taken into account. But here it is for me again, it's quite personal. Please have some compassion. Thank you.
Any questions for this gentleman? Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to read the handwriting. Amy Simmons? And please state your name for the record. Ma'am, you have 3 minutes.
Amy Simmons. It's really come to my attention, everything that's going on, and it's really concerning to me that the rules that are already there seem to be being overlooked. The people who live there are having these issues, and it's like the zoning that's already in place doesn't even seem to matter with the things that are coming in. I just wonder if anybody's even trying to think about the residents that are already in place and if any of the rules are even being applied at this point. And that's really all I had to say.
Any questions for her? Mr.
Just
Wayne, no?
whether, can you tell us
Ma'am?
what road you may live on?
I currently live at 410 Old River Road.
Thank you.
Andrea Morris? Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes if need be.
Andrea Morris. Just one question. The City of Savannah Code of Ordinances, code number 8.5.7, states that industry, manufacturing, and processing manufacturing operations that are adjacent to a residential zoning district or residential use shall conform to Section 8.5.5, Industry, Manufacturing, and Processing Limited Light. So why is heavy industrial even being considered, is my question. And the fact that, which wasn't yet stated about heavy industrial, is a difference in time frame when people can work. There's a time limit on light industrial. And in heavy industrial, you can work 24/7. That means the noise and the movement, the trucks, all of the traffic, that's going to be 24/7, or at least has the possibility. And that's another thing that we need to consider in our community. Not to mention the trucks and everything else that are going to be coming in on two-lane roads, small two-lane roads. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Thank you. Don Stack. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Donald Stack, Delagal Road, Savannah. I was telling staff earlier that unlike most attorneys, I'm not one that I need to hear myself talk, so I think 3 minutes will actually be fine. I think an initial matter, I want to ensure that the MPC has actually gotten a copy of the submittals that my folks have submitted previously. I know they sent photos, videos, things like that to Marcus Lots, and so I want to make sure that's part of the record. And then literally from an administrative standpoint, you've heard obviously from the folks themselves. I'm a firm believer that it makes more sense to hear from the people who are affected than it does talking heads, either myself or Mr. Yellen. Because the reality is, these are the folks that you actually have to answer to. You don't have to answer to Mr. Yellen, you don't have to answer to me. But what I would ask you to consider is, what is a rezoning request? A rezoning request is somebody, an applicant, telling you basically they're smarter than the hundreds of people who've gone before them and actually submitted and went to the time and trouble of adopting a new zoning ordinance, going to all that trouble, preparing comprehensive plans, looking at long use plans and strategies for the entire community, and then saying, you know what, set all that aside, we're smarter than you are. And that's literally what they're asking you to do. They're literally sitting there saying, okay, we know better, and forget what's happening to these folks. We know better than you what's in best for the entire community. Well, folks, you all considered that years ago. You've all considered what this area should be, whether it should be light industrial or heavy industrial. The problem that Mr. Yellen has is his own argument falls on its own face when he said, well, the reason we're asking for this rezoning is because we can't tell if a proposed use may or may not be subject to light industrial or heavy industrial. Well, the very uncertainty about that is why every proposed use needs to come back to this board for consideration. You don't get there and sit there and write a blank check for 500, 600 acres and then say, you know what, we'll take care of that in a master plan. You're supposed to sit there and say, okay, does this fit all the factors that we've already addressed? Folks have said, okay, is there a reasonable economic use? The law is clear that there is. It's one of the factors you need to consider. Every zoning ordinance since 1914, when the first one was enacted in Ohio, says that there's no obligation for a community to ensure the maximum economic return for an applicant. It's to ensure that there is a reasonable economic return. Ms. Wilson's already testified and talked to you about they bought this property knowing full well what the zoning was. So why are they trying to get you to change it now? One simple answer: green dollars. They don't want you to sit there and actually slow things down by actually evaluating each and every proposed use as it comes up. But that's your task. That's why you're sitting up there. That's what these folks are expecting you to do, not to write a blank check and simply say, okay, you know what, come in with a master plan, we'll submit it, we'll approve it at that point in time. Mr. Yellen talked about 4 different meetings with the community.
Your
And
3 minutes is coming up, sir.
all right, as Cheryl said, in response, Mr. Yellen was never able to give a meaningful example of what proposal or what application, what industry might be coming in, because he couldn't tell us. Well, if he couldn't tell us or didn't want to tell us, then that's speculative zoning at its finest. So I think the community is entitled to know a little bit of transparency. They're entitled to know what's actually happening here. This is what they've been asking for 4 years. And again, I'll just simply say that their problem, their request for rezoning is a creation of their own making, and these folks shouldn't have to bear the burden of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for
question.
Mr. Stack?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Jarrett.
Can you tell me what slideshows and presentations you're talking about?
Yes, apparently Ms. Sanderling and others had submitted information to Mr. Lotson previously and had asked that it be distributed in time for you folks to have an opportunity to review it.
Excuse me, this is very important. I actually emailed it on 10/6 with a note that if there's any issues, please contact me. I can send it right now. And it shows the.
Ma'am, y'all out of order right now in the audience, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can find out more if you want, Ms. Chair, and find out. Okay. Anything else? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next is Rick Buckley.
My name's Rick Buckley. I'm a 20-year resident of John Carter Road.
Yeah, 3 minutes, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I had just a couple questions, or one question and one comment. Of course, all of us on that road, or most all of us on that road, are in the county on wells and on septic tanks. And I just wanted to know, how can the county or the city assure us that this project won't affect our water going forward? Obviously, there's no pipeline coming from Savannah, so if my well water's contaminated, creates a huge problem for me. The other little comment I wanted to make involves the traffic. I certainly haven't done any scientific study of the traffic flow, but in the last 2 weeks, I have been out on the front at the highway working on my property, doing some work out there. And I know that one day early last week, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, I was out there starting work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I counted in 1 hour 42 trucks going up and down John Carter Road, and these were dump trucks or bigger. And that was just 1 hour that I counted. It was almost a constant roar of those kinds of vehicles. I don't know what kind of traffic this whole project will add to that. Right now, it seems like the main entrance is on Old River Road, but that doesn't mean in the future something else might not happen to increase the traffic on John Carter Road, including these possible employees that will be up and down on a road that's already fallen apart. Thank you. That's all I had. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Buckley? Thank you, sir. Blake Baker? I'm sorry? Thank you. Next would be Joanne, where we had that one, Joanne Connell. Yep. Please state your name for the record, ma'am. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Joanne Cottle, and I've been a 33-year resident on Huckleberry Road. First of all, we've been asked the question, why now? If this has been going on all these years, why now? About the rezoning. And that is because it had been very deceiving. The original owner of the property, Foxfield Company, held a meeting with Thomas and Hutton and several local residents. At that time, little print,
At that time, they asked the city to rezone the property to light industrial so that he could develop an upscale equestrian center. Residents had no problem with that. We found out later he had no intentions of doing that because on his application, it said for the purpose of warehousing. So we've been deceived from square one. It was not opposed to the first rezoning because we thought it was going to be the equestrian center. Now, because of that deception, we're possibly looking at heavy industrial, and that's a far cry from equestrian to heavy industrial in our backyard. And I would like to know, how does the MPC conclude that even industrial light, especially industrial heavy, is compatible with an area that has homes, schools, churches, this whole new development of New Hampstead and over 10,000 homes? Having been there 33 years, we bought our property with intentions of our daughter, we have one daughter, of raising her family. And at this point, she has the property adjacent to us. She's given us 3 beautiful grandchildren who are now 8, 11, and 6. Not only are they probably not going, if this comes in, they're not going to be able to enjoy the area and the neighborhood that we have and our children have. Not only that, they had attended Bloomingdale School. They are now in New Hampstead School. A lot of kids in this area, including one of our neighbors, walks to a bus stop a mile from our house because the bus won't come to our dirt road. Churches, the church I have been attending for 32 of those 33 years is on John Carter Road. And I hate to think of the impact of all these trucks and the traffic and the noise that this could even have on our churches. And we just celebrated our 179th anniversary. So it's not just the money, it's not just the jobs. There's probably a lot of residents that are going to have to move. So you're taking jobs somewhere else because you're wanting to bring jobs in. And I just wish that y'all would consider it's not just about the dollar all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Ms. Baker? Garnacia Bogus? Hope I said that right this time.
It's good enough.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Garnasia Bogus, and I live at 347 John Carter Road. It's taken a lot of push and a lot of hard work from a lot of people. Before my husband and I moved there, we've been living on John Carter Road for 3 years now. And there's been a lot of hard work to get to this point. And it is kind of, it's frustrating for me. My husband and I both are in the military, so I'm used to structure. I'm really used to people doing what they say they will do. That's my background. And it's scary because we went through this in Port Wentworth, so we had to upheave ourselves and move again, so it's like we're running in Chatham County. And now in Port Wentworth, the same, councilmen that approve the warehouses being built directly across from our homes are fighting more warehouses being built close to their homes now. Where does it stop? It's frustrating. One of the main responsibilities of local government is land use planning. There are many benefits that come from smart planning. Quality of life is maintained and improved. A clear vision is given for future land use, ensures that development is compatible in mass scale and use the surrounding area, adds value to surrounding properties. This information was taken directly from the city's website, and a rezoning to heavy industrial would do none of those. Heavy industrial is not compatible when abutting residential, and neither is light industrial, which is why both of them are allocated in the areas and not next to residential. You heard one of our other residents how the property got changed to light industrial. So you have a lot of people here who are asking you to do what you're saying that you are supposed to do. My husband spoke of impact that our family is dealing with from the Camp Lejeune water contamination. Another time when people did not do what they were supposed to do. So I just ask that you all look into this and hopefully you will deny this claim. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Ms. Bogus? Jason Chambliss?
Jason is with the petitioner to answer questions.
Okay. Did we already talk to Joanne Cottle? Yes, sir. We did, I'm sorry. And Cheryl Sanderlin? We did. There's a bunch of cards. And Donald Wilson? Almost.
I'll be brief.
3 minutes, sir.
My name is Donald Wilson. I just wanted to reiterate a few things that have been said and talk a little bit about our situation. One, I am kind of curious about the email package that was sent, why you haven't received it. So you do have it. Would you like to present it? No, I just wanted to make sure that the board has it. So, okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So Mr. Yellen said the property was originally rezoned in 2009, I think. I think we found 2008. I'm not going to split hairs over that, but we bought our property in 2011, and we thought we were doing due diligence by looking at all the surrounding property because there was a lot of vacant or undeveloped land around there. So at the time, we looked at the SAGES map that everybody's familiar with here, and the property was rezoned in 2008, but the map was not updated in 2011 when we purchased our property. And I don't know why that is. I don't know that you're supposed to be able to trust that map, but that's a concern that I have because we invested a huge nest egg, a huge portion of our finances into building our house, which is right around the corner of stone's throw from Miss Cheryl's house. And we're greatly affected by this. We're greatly impacted by this. So, our property values are just completely destroyed, I'm sure. I have no idea if we'll ever be able to come close to what we've invested in this property. Not to mention, this is where we wanted to be. This is where we built a beautiful home. And we love it there, and we don't want that to change. So I just ask that I want to echo what a lot of the neighbors have said, is just consider the impact to our homes, to our families, to our children before you make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Okay, is there anybody I missed? Raise your hand. You fill out a card? Did you forfeit?
I think I got here too late. I'm Terry Bennett.
She forfeited her time.
You forfeited your time? Okay. You filled out a card? Okay, I don't have your card. As I stressed in the meeting at the very beginning, you have to fill out a blue card if you want to speak on the subject matter. All right, with that being said, petitioner has a opportunity to rebut, and I'll allow you 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will not need the full 10 minutes.
And also, we're going to be provided the slideshow here in a minute. They're putting it
Yes,
together.
actually, we do have it teed up. If you, whoever submitted the slideshow, if you want to go over it in a few minutes. And I don't know if Harold wants to finish up after that's done or before. But we do have it.
Would you rather prefer it after the slideshow?
If somebody's going to come after me, I'd like time to rebut that as well. So
Okay,
whatever
that's
you
fine.
prefer, Mr. Chairman.
I will let you rebut that as well.
Okay. I will not take my full 10 minutes. The petition before you today is to rezone property that is already zoned industrial. There's no question about it. The property right now is zoned light industrial. We're asking to rezone a portion of the property on the other side of the folks who are behind me to heavy industrial and leave 120 acres in its current form, light industrial, only it will be better than it is now because we're improving buffers. Right now, the city ordinance only requires 50 feet. We're going to 100 feet. We're adding 100 foot by residential, and I misspoke. Earlier I said we added 20 10-foot cypress trees. I was corrected. There are in fact 10-foot cedar trees. There is also an existing berm, which I failed to mention, and there was a concern by the neighbors that we might take that berm down. And we agreed that we absolutely would not take the berm down, that we will permanently maintain that berm forever, permanently. So currently, right now, without this petition before you, this property is zoned light industrial with a requirement of 50 feet of buffer. Under the current zoning ordinance, there could be an oil distributor, a lumber yard, a sawmill, a textile mill, or a warehouse, which I heard that folks are concerned about. All of those things can go there right now. What we proposed was additional buffers to that light industrial area, twice as wide, putting in the cedar trees, adding the berm and preserving it. So we would say that a number of the issues which have been complained about, we would say are not related to the zoning petition. It's related to the fact that the property is zoned industrial, and it's zoned industrial right now. There was a comment made that CEDA is not concerned about the residents, and I want to take issue with that. What we did tell them was, honestly, unapologetically, what the mission of CEDA is. And the mission of CEDA is to bring business to Savannah with high-paying jobs. That's always been our mission. We don't steer from that. We think that having high-paying jobs for our community is something we want to do. A mom and dad who works at a manufacturing plant doesn't have to wonder about affordable housing because they can afford housing. So we believe in our mission. And when the comment was made that we're not concerned, I immediately looked at Ms. Dillon. She and I were at the meeting, and we had this look on our faces like, no. We do care about the residents, but we carefully outlined the mission of CEDA, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that. We did respond to their concerns. We changed our petition. We changed our buffers. We eliminated 29 uses. All of that didn't happen for no reason at all. We did it because we listened. Lastly, I believe Ms. Jarrett asked a question about DRI. And when I went back to my seat, Jason said that prior to the 2008 or 2009 zoning, I don't know which one it is, DRI was approved, and it was approved for a site with 6 million square feet of manufacturing. 6 million square feet for the DRI. The current plans that we have are for 2.5 million square feet. The traffic was assumed to be 1,180 peak hour traffic. We know because of our reduced square footage, it will likely be less. So we want to make sure that everybody understands, we're happy to do another DRI. The DRI that was approved prior to the zoning in 2009 was for significantly more traffic and significantly more square footage. So in closing, we do believe in our plan. We know we may not agree with the folks behind us, but we've done everything we can to make this project work. And we know at the end of the day, we're not going to agree. But I've learned a long time ago that reasonable people will disagree. And that's just something we're not going to be able to overcome. We know what we can do. We know what they want. We've done the very best that we can. So we do believe in what we believe is the thoughtful analysis of MPC staff. Once again, we do ask that you approve staff recommendation as presented to this board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Jarrett?
Mr. Yellen, the DRI that was done for light industrial, correct?
It was done for light industrial, which was probably with an emphasis on warehousing, is my guess.
Okay.
We very quickly tried to pull up records from 13 years ago. to
Understood,
respond.
understood.
So that was our best estimate as to what happened 13 years ago.
Okay, and the concerns about the heavy industrial running 24 hours a day, any comments on that?
Light industrial can run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I'm not sure, that was my comment. Some of the issues raised are not related to heavy industrial, they're
Okay.
related to industrial. And by the way, if this were commercial, if I had a 24/7 convenience store, if I had a ton of uses, the 24/7 operation is not related necessarily to industrial. But whatever that 24/7 might be, that can happen now. It doesn't have to be heavy industrial.
But with the heavy industrial, there would be more noise, more potential pollutants in the air, et cetera, et cetera?
Not necessarily. We don't know. We don't know
Potential.
yet. We're trying to have a menu that we can offer to high-paying manufacturing jobs.
Understood.
And Newso, I know there are a handful of people in this room who've read Newso cover to cover, and I count myself as one of those people. It's challenging at times, and light industrial and heavy industrial became a little bit more generic than it was before. And so when businesses do come in, it's hard to discern what you can and cannot do. We want to be able to compete, and the environment is enormously
understand.
competitive. We want to be in that position. And we'll do everything we can to put appropriate uses further away, nearer. You know, we have choices on a
Oh, I got one final question for you.
Yep.
It's kind of past tense, I guess. The issues of drainage, are you familiar with what happened, why the drainage issues have gotten so much worse? Did the clearing really affect the properties that much?
I'm not an engineer. Mr. Chambliss is
Understood.
here. We know that when we build, we are going to have to do a lot of work on storm. We know that. There are all kind of rules about post-development has to meet or exceed pre-development. So whatever we do here, there'll be lots of eyes watching us. And Mr. Chambliss is very much aware of it. He's heard this before. He's met with people before. We know whatever we do, we must address drainage, and we will.
Would he be willing to speak on it?
Of course. I've never stopped Mr. Chambliss before. He'll come up now.
Don't stop the engineers.
That's right.
Bigger than me.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jason Chambliss. I'm with Thomas and Hutton. We're the civil engineers for CEDA on this park. And just to kind of explain and fill out some additional information as far as what Mr. Yellen mentioned, we are aware of the drainage concerns in the area. Just to kind of explain by way of history, when this project started, the initial push of the project was a rough grading project. So the park originally contemplated just a basic excavating ponds, filling pads. We did storm drainage calculations to compensate for that, and that work proceeded. We did observe and were notified by some of the neighbors there was some water backing up the wetlands. So at that point, we tried to kind of troubleshoot where it was coming from, what could be, because if any of you know that area, it's a flat area. The wetlands are fairly flat, so it could be anything from beaver dams to blocked up culverts. So we spread out and kind of looked at all the areas and found that there was an area that had been blocked, a ditch that had been blocked, which we opened up, and that relieved that water. In the course of that investigation, we determined that downstream, though we had designed our storm system based on the conditions as they existed, what we did observe, in contrast to other areas of Savannah, is in West Chatham County, there's a huge wetland system that drains the Little Ogeechee. In other parts of the county and the city, there are canals that have been constructed that allow for a deeper, wider, more intentional drainage passageway. So it was our recommendation to CETA that they take the lead in contacting the municipalities that touch the Little Ogeechee to perhaps push forward a drainage study to look at that West Chatham corridor, specifically the Little Ogeechee drainage basin, to evaluate that, knowing that based on all the things we know about the Bryan County mega site and the development kind of going up I-16, that it would be useful for those communities to come together and do a full-fledged drainage study for that area. CETA actually commissioned for the first part of that, and the county, Chatham County, took it over. So there is, not only is CETA doing what they can on their site to be a good neighbor, because they're landowners in this area as well. They've also gone above and beyond to coordinate and push an effort to look at the wider drainage concerns for that community, because there were what we've also found is there were issues in that swamp kind of downstream of this park, even that predated any activity on the site. That's what kind of told us there were some things that need to be addressed in addition to this. So, like Mr. Yellen said, going forward, CETA is prepared to follow the applicable, storm drains requirements. All those ordinances are currently in place in the city to move forward on this project. But there's also this larger picture that's being pursued as well.
All right, one other question.
Sure.
Are you doing a coordinated effort to figure out what to do with the traffic?
I would say, well, with industrial, to be honest, it's an inexact science to predict industrial traffic. If anybody who knows the ITE codes, which is how you predict the traffic, there are a wide variety of situations you can apply to industrial uses. Warehouses, there's kind of a relationships in warehouses that's a little simpler to predict some of those if you know generally what it is. Manufacturing is a whole other animal, because are you talking assembly or are you talking a heavily automated?
But couldn't you do a major road study?
Well, absolutely. What I would say is I think it would be, and Mr. Yellen and I were just talking, I think it would be easy enough as each project comes online to with the site plan request, or if there's a general development plan or any, that there be some sort of trip generation calculation prepared as a part of that submittal package that would be run through the MPC and the city as well. And if there are, if there's an exceptionally high volume of trucks or a high number of employees, that could be addressed at that time. But at this point, based on the possibilities, that could be anything.
Ms. Bowles?
Could you tell me when the request was made for the Little Ogeechee drainage study and what the status is?
We have been underway, let's see, it's been, because it started, the initial investigation that CETA commissioned would have started probably 2019-ish, 2020. And don't quote me on this because it's not in my area of practice. I know the initial, what's happening now is an initial existing conditions analysis that the county has commissioned that is underway now. I don't know the completion date, but I know it's underway now. And then what that basically is doing is all the way up from Effingham County down to Savannah is studying all crossings, all culverts, everything that touches, that drains that Little Ogeechee basin is being evaluated now to determine where there are critical points.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one.
Sure.
Ms.
Elizabeth
Epstein?
Epstein. Does the city have plans to bring water and sewer out to this site for CETA?
There is water and sewer at the site as we speak.
Oh.
So yes.
So some of the neighbors feel it's going to.
We're all set. We're all set. We don't want city.
Well, there you go.
I'm sorry, can you clarify that? There's water and sewer at the CETA site?
Correct.
Not any of the residents?
We're being out of line in the audience. I'm sorry. The question's direct from the commissioner.
Yes.
Chambers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes,
I
Mr.
just
Noah.
make just a simple comment. I think one of the issues, and it was kind of hit on, but the site is in the city of Savannah. The roads are in the county. Some are in Bloomingdale. And I think until there's a comprehensive study with traffic drainage and all that. We're fighting each other, you know, it's your problem, it's my problem. So whether this goes through or not, we need to look at a comprehensive drainage traffic study for that whole area. I mean, it is not the John Carter Road or my mind just went blank, Old River Road that it was 5 years ago, much less 20 years ago. So just some
I
comment.
agree. Ms. Epstein? Get your mic on.
Oh, sorry.
I understand that the slideshow is posted.
What's up? Oh. I wasn't sure, Mr. Chairman, if a member of the public was going to present this information that they sent in. Does anybody want to talk about this? Come on.
Apologize, when we were speaking earlier, we actually thought that you had this slideshow in front of you so that you could at some point see it.
Oh, they can see the full page.
Okay, great. This is a map that you're familiar with. We've all used it for you to see. The reason this was given was because I think sometimes you think that we just thought it was going to be passed from IL to IH. This community was basically deceived from the beginning, which is not CEDA's fault, but they were deceived from the beginning in 2008 when this was actually brought before the community. The signs were, again, not posted properly. The neighbors were not notified correctly. It was brought before the community in a meeting, and the community was told this was going to be an equestrian center. At the same time, we found out that we're not metropolitan planning people. We do not know laws. We do not know how to look things up. At the same time, it was already being prepared for warehouses. It was already being applied for warehouses. So the community did not fight this being changed to IL because they were under the understanding that it was going PIL for an equestrian center, which was required to have the horse stables and all on it. But at the same time, like I said, it was actually already being proposed for warehouses that we were unaware of. The main thing I want to show you in this, all of this, as you can see, we've already discussed, but I wanted you to see the pictures. This is from my front yard, one of the sites being cleared. This is not zoomed in. This is actually from my front yard. This is the flooding we incurred just in our property. This is the roads, 3 of the roads that surround this area. One of them is going to Amanda's house. 2 of them are right at our house. This is trying to get to our homes and the flooding that occurred. This is the ditch on John Carter Road right here. These are some of the letters and correspondences we had way back. Some of them even resulted in a letter of threat, which you can see attached to it. This is the public zoning notices, where I told you if you look, there's a dirt road. That's probably 1/5 of the dirt road you had to go down, cross through the woods to get to the sign that was posted. And I'm actually standing on the berm there, taking a picture of my home. So you can see how close it is. These are just articles from the news. This community, just so you'll know, is spread out as they are. When they found out this was going on, rallied together. Some people could not donate a thing. This community, for the majority of the people, is a lower income to lower middle income community. Some of them gave $10, some gave as much as $30, $50. And then we had a few contributors that, thank goodness, were able to get us enough that we could get this information out. We could put up signs, posters, meet the community, send out, notices, hire our attorney. That's the only way we were able to get any money together was for these people to do this. As you can see, that's the map that they proposed. They are required, from what we can read and find in our thing, to provide 40 feet of buffer. Buffer means just clear land. They were kind enough to give 50. Directly next to my house, they were kind enough to give 100. Out of 12, on their proposed map, out of 12 sites, they were giving up 1 to industrial light and leaving the rest heavy. That's what I'm showing on this map here. In addition to that, the 20 trees that they placed, which I have a picture of on my phone, which was just done last week. It was nice to have the trees and the berm, but they could have left the 100 feet of buffer that wasn't needed of the heavy, thick trees, but they came in like a bull in a china closet. And the people that live across the street from me, I haven't been able to reach them, not live, but own the property. They cleared right up to where their house will be. So the 50-foot buffer they're going to have is clear, empty land to look at the parking lot and the building. And to go back to show you where I'm talking about, if you look at this map, you saw where my house is. See that long, skinny strip up against CETA? That's their property, and there is no buffer. I don't think some people can really understand the true impact until you see these pictures and you see how close it is to all of us. And the traffic study that was mentioned, I will say, we've read in 2 different places that the prior just warehousing was going to be at least 7,000 car impact. I can tell you, with 11,000 new homes coming across the street, to add this to the 11,000 homes, even 1,000 cars will make a tremendous impact. So we did want you to see this, though, and to see that we live in this now, waiting for each site to be built and having to spend our life trying to figure out, is this going to put more traffic? Is this going to put more water on top of us? I live in a high spot. I don't live in a low spot.
Okay.
So there's the film that we wanted you to see, so you could see what it actually has done to us flooding-wise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Yellen, I gave you a chance to come up again.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, members of the MPC, how to respond. We just don't see that we are adding to the existing industrial problem. As was just said, there's a concern about warehouses and the additional 7,000 cars. Well, that's not what we're doing here. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're trying to create 2 forms of industrial, leave the light industrial against residential, improve buffers based on the DRI, reduce square footage based on the DRI, reduce traffic. I suppose we don't have exactly what we're going to do, because once we leave you, it's up to Mr. Tollison and Ms. Dillon to go out and sell. Their job is to sell our community. So I'd love to be able to tell you we're bringing X and we're bringing Y and we're bringing Z. But that's really why we're here, so that they can go out and market our community and put manufacturing in something called the Chatham-Savannah Manufacturing Center. And that's really the only reason we're here today. So with that, I will stand down again. We do respectfully request approval of staff recommendation, which is for approval with the requirement that we come back for a master plan, which we've agreed to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions from commissioners? Any further discussion? Yeah. Nope. Ask for a motion.
I'd like to recommend a motion to deny staff's recommendation.
I second. Epstein.
Motion is to deny staff's recommendation. We'll go to a vote.
Mr. Chair, can we have them bring up what the staff's recommendation is on the screen, please?
Yes. Motion was to deny staff's recommendation, seconded by Ms. Epstein. Recommendations. Basically, it's got it on your screen. Recommendation based upon existing zoning pattern, character of the area, as well as the review criteria. Staff recommends approval of the request to rezone approximately 513 acres from IL to IH at 500 John Carter Road with the following condition. One being a master plan shall be brought back to the Metropolitan Planning Commission for approval. Note, staff's recommendation is based upon information contained in the application and the discussions with the applicant. This recommendation shall change based on information gathered during the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yes.
Did the petitioner not say that they were going to actually request that 100-something acres be the IL to IH?
That's what,
Just want to clarify.
there were 100 acres that were going to remain IL and 530.
Oh, I got it. Okay. I just making sure I had it mixed up. All right, thank you.
And for clarity, the remaining acreage in the light industrial is what abuts the residential properties.
Correct.
So any of the heavy industrial would not abut residential properties. Is that correct?
That's
Within the
correct.
100 acres, that's correct.
All understand that. And there's a motion on the table right now. Motion is to deny staff's recommendation. Got a second by Ms. Epstein. We'll now go to a vote. Ms. Bowles,
Yes to deny.
Mr. Coleman,
No.
Mr. Coles,
No.
Mrs. Epstein,
Yes.
Ms. Karen Jarrett,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Noah,
No.
Mr. Jeff Natrico,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Stevens,
No.
Tom's not here, and Joe Welch, yes. Yes has it, 5-4.
Just a recommendation.
Yep.
Yes, the motion passed to deny.
And
the
it's just a
request.
recommendation. Still goes to city.
That's right. This still does go to city, okay? Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Do you remember that? everybody come back to the meeting? All right, we'll get back to business. Where's staff?
Got the commissioners here. Probably not getting interviewed.
We're going to move to item number 16, Master Plan, 0 Fort Argyle Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm opening up the map. Okay. The petitioner is requesting MPC approval of a master plan, this master plan on the screen, to a previous zoning approval for property located at 0 Fort Argyle Road. The subject property consists of 3 zoning classifications comprising a total of approximately 323.11 acres. On May 3rd, 2022, a rezoning request was approved with the following conditions. 1, a master plan shall be required to come back to the MPC prior to a site development plan approval, which they are doing today. And 2, add a 100-foot densely landscape buffer around the residentially zoned properties. The 2022 master plan was designed to include 3 zoning classifications within the 323 acres. The front portion over here, facing Fort Argyle, is zoned BC Community Business. The BC portion includes an indoor ice hockey complex, an indoor soccer complex, an outdoor soccer complex for adults and juniors, with associated parking. The middle portion, which is from here to here, includes, is zoned light industrial transition, which was approved, includes 108 acres, and that portion has warehousing, truck storage, and parking, whereas the rear portion, which includes 155 acres, back here is zoned light industrial. The light industrial portion includes warehousing, trucks, storage, and truck parking spaces. The development includes a spine access road with ingress and egress from Fort Argyle Road. The master plan includes the following. So I will list exactly what they are proposing at this time on their master plan. The business community section, which is 58.83 acres, has 100,000 square feet in size, an indoor hockey complex, a 62,000 square foot indoor soccer complex, and then an outdoor soccer complex with 2 adult soccer fields and 4 junior soccer fields. And I can this will be the BC portion. So if you see, there's the indoor facilities, and then over here, adjacent to the residential properties that have a 100-foot buffer, there's junior and adult soccer fields. The light industrial transition site includes 108 acres, and that has areas of buffer, preserved wetlands, including the following warehouse buildings. They have 5 warehouses ranging from 50,000 square feet in size to 110,000 square feet in size. And the rear portion, which is zoned light industrial, is proposed 4 warehouses ranging from 157,500 square feet to 1,410,750 square feet in size. The locations we had gone through regarding the zoning. The area is south of, there is an undeveloped single-family and Creek Fire Motor Range to the south of the property, and Gateway Market, restaurants, and multifamily residential to the east of the property. What is this? And then 9 Line and some undeveloped areas to the west of the property. The proposed master plan area includes existing wetlands, stormwater detention, ponds, and open space as outlined in the master plan. We do have the engineer here to speak further on the mitigation of those. Through this specific development plan review process, stormwater management, open space, and wetland mitigation will be addressed. Subject site has frontage on Fort Argyle Road, a 2-lane road. Fort Argyle turns into Georgia 204 highway once it passes through the I-95 overpass. The final location of any curb cuts will be determined during the traffic impact analysis, which will be required before any development takes place. Public transit is currently not available along Fort Argyle Road within a 500-foot radius. The nearest bus stop is located on South Gateway Boulevard. And the property is served by the Savannah Police Department, City of Savannah Fire Protection, and the City of Savannah will provide water and sewer to the site. In conclusion, the proposed master plan would result in a significant change to the development pattern in the area. The intensity of the uses is expected to continue to increase in this area, which has largely been rural for many years. The submission of the master plan was a condition of approval for the rezoning amendment, as well as a 100-foot densely landscaped buffer around the residentially zoned properties. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the petitioner's request to the master plan dated August 5th, 2022, with the following conditions. 1, the buffer requirement from 362 Fort Argyle Road requires a 30-foot buffer with an 8-foot fence. This shall be revised prior to approval of any specific development plan. 2, the buffer requirement for PIN 11-034-01010 requires a 40-foot buffer within an 8-foot fence, and this shall be revised prior to approval of any site-specific development plan. 3, improvements in access on Fort Argyle Road would be determined by the governing body. 4, a 100-foot densely landscaped buffer around the residentially zoned properties. And we are also suggesting that there might be a stub from the property that was just addressed at 500 John Carter to allow for commercial access. This access to 362 Fort Argyle, which is one that was here recently about 2 months ago and is asking for a rezoning. And they will most likely be going to a business community zoning classification instead of a light industrial. And the applicant is here, as well as I, to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant like to come forward? Please state your name for the record. You have 20 minutes if need be, sir.
Scott Allison with Coleman Company. I'm here with Greg Coleman as well from Coleman Company. I won't take up that much time. Ms. Pauletto did a great job of explaining our plan to you guys. I did want to touch on a few things. We agree to the conditions that staff recommended. We intend, as promised to the property owners, that to include the 100-foot, right now we're calling for an undisturbed buffer. It's wooded surrounding those properties now. Did want to point out, you'll notice it kind of laid out nicely during our zoning approval and does during our master plan. We have a significant undisturbed wetland between the BC designation and the ILT, and then you have the Georgia Power combined with the gas easement providing kind of a separation between the ILT and the IL. The large warehouse in the rear, it does abut a heavy industrial district. We tried to position any of the larger warehouse kind of in that location. Also wanted to note that we have applied for wetland with the Corps of Engineers. Our wetland consultant got that in. I guess you said it was in May, and we will mitigate accordingly based on approval of said permit from the Army Corps of Engineers for any wetland impact that we have. Also, we're currently working with Kimley Horn Engineering on a traffic impact analysis, and we'll be coordinating based on the results of that analysis with the City of Savannah Engineering Group and the Georgia Department of Transportation. As far as our access control along our property frontage, and as was described, if the adjacent property is not able to receive any type of access by the Georgia Department of Transportation, we do have some parking and access in relative close proximity that's associated with that indoor ice hockey facility, that there could be some cross connection there depending on the results of GDOT analysis on the property. As I mentioned, we agree to all of the staff's recommendation, and we're here as a follow-up to the condition that was placed on our zoning approval earlier in the summer. Myself and Mr. Coleman stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Jarrett.
My concern is making sure that we do things as safely as possible, and that corner piece that you were just talking about, is your intent to stub a drive to that property so that access is easy and readily available?
The first we've heard about it was today.
Yes, I understand that. I was the one who brought it up.
Marcus and Melissa gave us a heads up that was a comment. Right now, we're showing an access onto Fort Argyle Road at that location. Our accesses are just based on GDOT standards and separation between where those accesses can go. Obviously, the spine road, we want to line up as well as we can with Creek Fire across the street. I mean, that can become an intersection of sorts.
Absolutely.
We have the ability to cross-connect to that adjacent parcel based on our layout on this plan that, it lends itself for it. It be determined by GDOT and Savannah Engineering as if they can't get it in access onto State Route 204.
But if they can get an access in, wouldn't it be safer for them to be able to get to a signalized intersection rather than trying to do an unsignalized?
Yeah, we wouldn't
drive?
hinder any safety, and would, work with whatever we needed to do to allow for any type of cross connect. Our intention isn't necessarily to go build them a stub. If we're ahead of them, when they submit into Savannah and GDOT for what their plans are, we don't plan on any kind of standing in their way, depending on how GDOT wants those cross connection to happen in any access State Route 204 for that facility. I haven't seen any plans for there.
I haven't either.
But, our intention is to be a good neighbor and not, hinder any type of cross access. We obviously have to serve the needs of the indoor hockey facility and make sure ingress, egress, and safe vehicular circulation applies for all the folks that are going to be visiting that. But if you look at the site plan, there is opportunity there for a connection over.
Understood. The number of trucks is huge there. That's why it seemed like a connection would be an important thing to do.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No. Is anybody, thank you, sir. Is anybody from the audience? No. Anybody on the computer? Last name? Ms. Bieber? Unmute your button on your computer. Carrie Bieber? Need to unmute your button on your computer. Nope. Sorry, ma'am. Anybody else? That's it.
Chairman, did we have anyone, any kind of correspondence from neighbors, opposition?
No, not at this time.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll put it to a motion.
Coles make the motion that we approve staff's recommendation for approval.
Second, Bowles.
We'll go to a vote. Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Coles?
Yes.
Ms. Epstein?
Yes.
Ms. Jarrett?
Yes.
Mr. Noah?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Welch? Yes. Motion passes. Thank you for making that simple. Next, we go to item 17, map amendment, 11313 Middle Ground Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a petition to rezone property at 11313 Middle Ground Road. The property is approximately 11 and a half acres. And the petitioner is requesting to rezone the property from the RSF 5 zoning classification, which is residential single family, which allows single family detached lots at 5,000 square feet lot minimum. They're proposing to rezone the property to the RMF2 designation with a density of 18 units per acre. The intent of the rezoning is to develop the property as an apartment complex. This is the property you see highlighted here on the vicinity map. It's on the west side of Middle Ground Road between Quail Forest and Peachtree Drive. This is a tax map that shows the parcel as it exists today. You can see that it abuts Middle Ground Road at this location. As I mentioned, the site is vacant and undeveloped. It's been in family ownership for many years, so it includes mature vegetation. It's also bounded on the rear by a detention pond. North and south of the subject property are single and two-family neighborhoods, most of which were developed primarily in the 1980s. There are a few homes in this area that were developed a little earlier than that. On the north side, along Forest Ridge Drive, this is primarily a single-family neighborhood. On the south side, you've got both single-family in this location and some two-family down adjacent to it. The subject property would be accessed from Middle Ground Road due to an existing median immediately in front of the property. There would not be full access to Middle Ground Road in terms of right-left. It would be a right-in, right-out only situation at that location. There is potential to connect to South Quail Crossing, which is a right-of-way that abuts the subject property in the Forest Ridge neighborhood. Just in terms of some additional context, this exhibit shows the subject property, which is the wooded area you see here. This is the dead end of South Quail Crossing, which we just talked about. Middle Ground Road is here, and Dutchtown Road, which you're probably familiar with, is located right here. This is the full access, full movement access point for the Forest Ridge neighborhood at this location. In terms of our review of this as a zoning matter, the comp plan designation for the property is residential single family. It is zoned residential single family now, so that is consistent in terms of the land use designation and the current zoning. The range of uses permitted under the proposed zoning, we don't find to be more suitable than that which is allowed under the current zoning. The current zoning would allow a homogeneous development pattern in this area to be consistent or similar, at least in scale, to the adjacent properties. We believe that the property does have reasonable use under the current zoning. And in addition, and I'll go into briefly the, let's see. This is a concept plan that was provided by the applicant to illustrate the potential developable nature of the property. That concept plan includes up to 192 dwelling units. So that would be at this location. We found that the introduction of that number of units in the form of multifamily residential is incompatible with the surrounding land uses. The current zoning was established on the undeveloped parcel for the purpose of maintaining the existing single-family neighborhood. One of the things that we spoke about in the pre-meeting when we discussed the potential crossing to South Quail Crossing, potential connection to South Quail Crossing, was the introduction of a different pattern, both from a traffic standpoint and a land use standpoint, which we believe is problematic. While multifamily residential is often considered the primary response to the housing shortage that we know we're all facing, we believe there's also a need for entry-level, single-family products as well, which could be developed here and would be appropriate in terms of matching the existing pattern. In addition, Middle Ground Road from the subject property and the potential connection to the existing residential streets on South Quail Crossing, we think are problematic from an access standpoint, whether it be potentially creating more U-turn trips here or accessing through South Quail. Based on the review of the criteria in the zoning ordinance, staff is recommending denial of the petition to rezone the property. I should have mentioned, which I did in the pre-meeting, that the applicant did hold 2 neighborhood meetings with members of the Wilshire Estates Neighborhood Association. There are some information attached to the agenda to that effect in the form of a petition signed by many of the neighbors that participated in those meetings, and some of which not present at the meetings but did express their opinions through that format. But with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is the petitioner here?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Yellen?
Yep.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you. For the record, Harold Yellen on behalf of the petitioners. With me today is Mr. Marvin Vickery. The Vickery family has owned this property for over 90 years. For the early 30s, so approximately 90 years. Also, Cord Wilson and Clay Collins are here today, the potential developers of the site. Mr. Wilson and Mr. Collins are principals with Beacon Builders, who have built homes and apartments throughout our community. We are requesting that the property located on Middle Ground Road be rezoned to an RMF 218, which is a density of 18 units per acre. As we always do, customarily do, and we hope to continue doing, we've submitted a site plan. This is for illustrative purposes only. It is not necessarily the plan that we would submit to the MPC for site plan approval, but it shows how the apartments do fit and how it can be handled on this site. What's unusual is that this property is 11 and a half acres. When I met with the petitioners about this property, they told me about this 11-acre site on Middle Ground, and I said, that's not possible. There's no 11 acres on Middle Ground. So I was very surprised when they showed me that this site does exist, and so we are aware at how unusual this site is, being on a major arterial, development all around it, but it is 11 and a half acres. We also know that there are only 2 uses you can put this property to: single-family residential or multifamily. I'm not here asking for industrial on this site. I promise y'all, this can only be one of 2 things: multifamily, single-family. That's it. No one is suggesting any other use. But it's interesting, in the staff report, staff tells us that the development pattern in the immediate vicinity includes single-family residential, 2-family residential, and low-rise apartment buildings along Middle Ground Road. They also tell you that there are several transit stops in the vicinity of this property, and in fact, it's at our front door on Middle Ground Road. Staff has recommended denial, I think, primarily based on 2 concerns, and we want to address those 2 concerns right now. One was the traffic impact due to access only to Middle Ground Road and potential connection to existing residential right-of-way. And let me just set the record straight. We have no intention of connecting to the residential neighbors next to us. In fact, if we were single-family residential, we would. It would make sense to connect if we were single-family residential, but for multifamily, we absolutely do not. Our access is to Middle Ground Road, which is a 4-lane major arterial road with more than enough capacity for this development. With respect to staff's comment about introducing a multifamily development to this area, I'd like to show you what we perceive as a broader picture of this area. And you can see all of the various properties that are currently zoned multifamily in this area right now. And these have densities of 10, 20, 25, 25, 10, 10, and 25. All around us, the development pattern includes single-family residential, and it includes multifamily. This is purely taken off of Sages. I thought I'd go ahead and put some names to these properties, and what I'm showing you in yellow is Hidden Lakes, Hickory Grove, Ramsey Run, Rendant, Ridgewood, Pointer, Bricktown Flats, and Savannah Commons, although not a traditional apartment. It is an elderly facility that's also multifamily. And if you will, pay particular attention to the purple, which is right next, the property in front of you is in green, and you'll see just below it is an area in purple. And I'm going to come to that in just a second. Here are the density calculations for some of the properties I gave you. You can see the acreage ranges from a low of 1.69 to a high of 12.79. The density ranges from 5.59 to 21.4 units per acre, all within the area of the property before you. Lastly, we asked our consultants, what does the area look like in terms of around us? And everything that you see in yellow is an apartment building. The first circle represents a 1 mile radius from the subject site. The second circle is a 2 mile radius from the subject site. Every dot you see, every yellow dot that you see is in fact an apartment complex. We're not entirely sure why, but there is an inference that multifamily is considered to be inconsistent with single family. It's sort of built into the staff report. We would submit to this board that multifamily and single family coexist everywhere, not just in downtown Savannah, but everywhere. Here's Buccaneer Trace, albeit it's in the county, but there's Buccaneer Trace, which has a density of 13.5 units per acre, smack in the middle of a residential community, and I'm not aware that there have been any issues with Buccaneer Trace. Here's the south side of Jackson Woods Boulevard, which has units which are 10 units an acre, 15 units an acre, and 20 units an acre, side by side with residential, single-family residential. Windsor Forest, I've highlighted 4 areas which are 15 units an acre, 15 units an acre, 2 of which are 25 units an acre, in the middle of Windsor Forest. So we're not sure why there is an inconsistency. Why are we saying that from a land pattern we shouldn't have multifamily? In fact, what we see in this neighborhood is multifamily on Apache, multifamily on Mohawk, and multifamily on Middle Ground. We hear the rallying cry for more housing, and this is candidly a superb location. We're near other multifamily, we're near public transportation, and we're on a major arterial. We also find ourselves wondering, because I'm going to get back to my property in purple. When this came before the MPC in 2019, we were asking to rezone the property to a PRM 24 units an acre. And even though MPC staff recommended denial, the MPC voted in favor. And when it found its way at City Council, the policy analysis was changed based on your comments, and it says, the existing zoning along this portion of Mohawk has remained unchanged for 35 years. Rezoning the subject property to PRM 24 would allow multifamily in a block that is not developed in that way to date. We recommend approval to PRM 24 based on the overall development pattern of the broader neighborhood and the existing examples of multifamily residential in the vicinity. So I'm not sure why we are different. There may be residential directly next door, but there's no question that there's multifamily everywhere along Apache, along Mohawk, and along Middle Ground Road. For these reasons, we would respectfully request approval of our petition as submitted. Behind me, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Collins, Mr. Vickery, all of whom are available to answer any questions y'all may have. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Yellen. Any questions from commissioners? Ms. Jarrett?
I think the petitioner may want to speak as well. If I'm sorry.
Come on up, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Clay Collins with
Mr.
Beacon.
Collins, state your name, whatever you'd like to add, sir. Give us about 3 minutes.
The type of...
Speak in the mic and state your name.
Yes, Clay Collins. You want to stand up for you? This is my business partner, Cord Wilson. He has hurt his knee, so he's hobbling around a little bit.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for seeing us.
I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what the actual type of multifamily that we're proposing. It's not super high end. But it's also a nice, good, solid product, which is what we need in Savannah. I wanted to address one thing that Harold had said about the two potential uses for the property, which would be single family and multifamily. We also are single family developers and contractors, and we build a lot of houses in the city of Savannah, entry-level housing. And this property we would absolutely not touch this property from a single-family development standpoint, even if it were given to us for free. The economics of the area do not work, and if we can't make it work, I don't think anybody can. We are, we build entry-level housing, and we build affordable, workforce multifamily as well. And so I just wanted to let that kind of be said. So I understand the neighbors' concerns. I'm sure the neighbors would like it to stay, wooded. And I'm sure you'll hear from some of them that they'd like the property to remain, wooded forever. And I will say, if they turn us down for multifamily, they may get their wish that it will probably just stay wooded forever, which is, not exactly what the Vickery's want to hear, but.
Yeah, we see this as an opportunity to bring a good amount of clean, decent, affordable housing to the south side of Savannah. It's not going to be Class A apartments, but it's going to be a very nice product. That we think that nurses at the hospital nearby, soldiers at the base nearby will be able to afford, and students at the college. And this would be our third development in that area. The first one's completed and doing very well, leased up nicely.
That's on Apache at Hickory Grove.
We're under construction, another 64 units around the corner of Mohawk. We're really excited about that. And this would be a third addition to that, that group of housing, and we feel like it's a need the community. So appreciate y'all hearing us today. If you got any questions.
Any questions for us? Or
I have a question.
Ms. Jarrett had it first. I'm going to give it back to her.
Actually, my question was for Mr. Yellen, but I think it works for all three of you.
Sure, yes, ma'am.
One, why not townhomes? Two, how are you going to handle, you got 190 some and they don't have a left turn off of the main road, and you don't want to connect with, I understand why you don't want to connect with the residential area, but that sounds like danger to me.
Well, actually, the right in, right out actually makes it less dangerous because there's only one way that you can turn. You're not trying to fight traffic across.
But it means that people are going to have to make U-turns there at Forest Ridge.
Yes, ma'am. They're already having to make a U-turn to get into the next neighborhood.
So we're adding more U-turns to that intersection?
Yes, ma'am, there will be more U-turns, of course.
I don't like that.
Well, a single-family development would also result in more U-turns as well.
But more U-turns.
Yeah.
Mr. Noah?
She touched on it, and I must have missed it. There is no intent for you to gain access to South Quail.
There will be a, I believe the city of Savannah is going to require us to have an emergency access, but it'll be a single lane, just wide enough for a fire truck, not.
Will it be gated, or
It will be gated. It will be gated. It'll be with a breakaway
So there
gate.
will be no, it is not your intent for any traffic, residential traffic,
We absolutely don't.
coming
want it.
through that neighborhood?
Correct.
It would also serve as a benefit to the Forest Ridge community. If their entrance is ever blocked and they need an emergency vehicle access, it would provide them with a secondary vehicular access as well.
We absolutely do not intend to have any of our tenants
Residents.
access
Cool.
through
Thank you.
through Forest Ridge.
Any further, Ms. Bowles?
Yes. I'm glad you addressed the issue or question about entry-level single-family, but was there a response about townhomes?
The economics for townhomes don't work for us either. I mean, we're leaving if it doesn't work. I mean, if we don't get earlier today, Harold asked if we would accept a lower density in exchange for the rezoning, and I shut him down and said, we won't. We will not.
The economics
just don't work.
Any further questions? Thank you, gentlemen. I do have
Thank you.
3 question cards from the audience. I ask you to come up when I call your name. Please speak into the mic, state your name. You have 3 minutes. Anita Jordan?
Hello, everyone. I'm a resident of South Savannah, and I almost felt like they wrote my speech for me here.
State your name for the record.
Anita Jordan.
Thank you.
If you take a little trip through South Side, you see nothing but apartment complex. Apartment after apartment after apartment. When I went to buy a home there, because I like South Side, I had a difficult time. We managed to see 4 homes. That was it. And got into a bidding war on 3 of them because people want to live there, but the space is limited. Now I hear that there's a crisis. We need more apartments. Yes, around that location, there are roughly 20, 25 apartment complexes, all of whom I called and asked about their availability. Every single one except 2 said, of course, immediately I could move in. One was November and the other was December. Those were the only 2 that didn't have immediate availability. It's not availability that's ruining Savannah's homing. It's not having affordable homes. Small, affordable homes, starter homes. If you're not able to do that, not my problem. There are builders here who can handle that, I'm sure. And it would benefit the people of Savannah. Now, you did say, what's the difference between owning a home or living in an apartment? There's a lot of difference. I live in my home because it's a community. I own it. For every dollar I put into it, it belongs with me. In an apartment, every dollar I give is just wasted. At the end of my time there, I have nothing but receipts. One of the most easy ways for an individual to build generational wealth is through home ownership. And so we want to offer them more apartments. And when you talk about affordability, there is no rent control here in Savannah. They can charge what they want. And listening to the prices I heard, didn't sound all that affordable to me. Maybe to somebody with wealth, yes. But where I live is fairly low income, low to middle income. We can't afford to pay $1,400 for an apartment. Throw a $1,400 out the window every month? No, it doesn't work. That's not affordable. Maybe in somebody's dreams, but reality's so different. We need housing. We need communities. We don't need more apartment complexes. We want community. People who are together, working together. We gathered over 100 names on petitions. That's a community because we don't want this. I bought my house and was told it's a residential community. And that's why I bought it. If they told me when I bought it, oh, but we're going to put nearly 200 apartments over there, I wouldn't have bought the house. And it will affect us who own. It will ruin our property values. And we're against this idea. Build starter homes. Make it affordable. Make it real. If somebody's going to struggle to pay $1,400 a month, it might as well be for a mortgage.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Jean Bellamar. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Jean J.J. Belmar. I live at 14 Peach Road. Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We submitted a petition to the Planning Commission with over 100 people who signed. And it says South Apartment Builders is requesting a rezoning of our neighborhood to build multifamily residential units. This will negatively impact our neighborhood and property values. We are opposed to the rezoning request. So more than 100 people who live within 300 feet from 11-3-13 Middle Ground Road signed that petition. And what we have in common, people with different political leanings, different religious beliefs, but what we all have in common is none of us is independently wealthy. All of us have to hold jobs or run small businesses to pay bills. And all of us made a commitment when we became residents of this neighborhood. We all made a commitment. We knew about the zoning of the property that we bought or that we rented. We knew that we had to pay rent or mortgage. We knew about property taxes. We knew everything, and we made a commitment. I wasn't born in America. I was born in Canada. I was naturalized. I became a U.S. citizen in 2007. And when I made the decision to become American, I did not decide to choose what I like about America and say, well, you know what, that's not that convenient. Y'all, let's change half of what comes with America and let's have it redone so I can become a U.S. citizen. That's not the way it happened. And when I decided to become owner at 14 Peach Road, that's the same. I committed to the things the way they were. I did not ask anything to be rezoned. I did not ask for any law in Savannah to change from the get-go as a condition for me to become owner. And right now, as it is, There is nothing that is proposed in that rezoning that is bringing or proposing anything that benefits the current resident of our neighborhood. The only three or four people who will benefit from it, Mr. Yellen, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Collins, Mr. Vickery, they either do not live in our community, in our neighborhood, or in the case of Mr. Vickery, he'll make enough money to cut his losses and move out of the neighborhood after our property value goes down the drain. Let's talk about all the uncertainty that is caused by the situation. Drainage, we haven't even talked about drainage yet. But the problem with zoning is that they want to rezone, and then after that, they want you to consider that, well, they're they're builders with a reputation. Okay, I believe that, but that's irrelevant because once you grant a different zoning status, that zoning comes with no strings attached. It's not like, well, as soon as you make the rent affordable for these buildings, as long as you incentivize good tenants. No, there's no such thing. We already have, Mr. Yellen was talking about the different apartment complexes that existed in Savannah. Well, we already have a problem with absentee landlords as it is. Landlords who live out of town, don't live in the neighborhood, and as long as their bottom line is met, as long as they collect enough rent, they don't care about what's going on in Southside Savannah. They don't care about what goes on with crime, with cleanliness, with traffic flow, etc.
Your time is up, sir.
Thank you so much. You have a good day.
Thank you. Next is Laura Brothers. Just state your name for the record there.
Yes, I'm just going, my wheelchair can elevate. I'm just going to raise it.
Okay.
Modern technology.
Yes, ma'am. And you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Laura Brothers, and I live at the very end of Forest Ridge Drive. I moved to Savannah about 5.5 years ago from New England. Can they see that everywhere?
Yes, ma'am.
So I live at the very end, and it's a cul-de-sac. I have a lot of requirements that I need in order to purchase a house. I can't tell you how many pieces of property that I looked at in Savannah to find one that was accessible, was safe, and had issues with noise. I have a condition with my spinal cord injury, unfortunately, that noise affects me medically. So I sent over a few photos. This happens to be one of the photos from my deck that I had built onto my property. So can we go to the next photo? Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see that fence at the tree line. That tree line extends the entire way of my property. On the other side of that fence is where it is proposed that 192 units are going to be built. So in everyone's backyard, I'm assuming, is similar to mine, but I live at the end of a cul-de-sac for a reason. And I'm going to speak for myself. I think there are a lot of pros to having a one-way in and one-way out. There's only one way to get in and one way to get out. It's a much safer place when there's only one entrance and exit. I hardly see any traffic. There could be hours where I don't have any traffic noise. I can't imagine my backyard, all of the bedrooms in my home are maybe 30 to 40 feet from that fence line. I can't imagine hearing people 30 to 40 feet away, 182 units. So are we talking about 500 people? We're talking about at least 182 parking spaces. That space, from my approximation, only appears to be the size of a football field wide. That's not very much room between my community and the community south of me, which is Peachtree. This property is smack dab in between, up against both our property units. I just can't imagine 192 units in that very small space. With all of that traffic, I don't know if many of you have tried to pull out from Forest Ridge or any of the communities close onto Middle Ground. Good luck. And I can't imagine adding another 500 cars doing that, what that's going to look like. I am begging you, please do not change the zoning from single family, please. I will be forced to move. I don't have a choice. I will have to sell my property. I don't want to have to do that. So please, take that into consideration. And I'm sure I'm not the only one in that position. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Does petitioner wish to come forward? You got 10 minutes if you need it.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. The petitioners before you today are very knowledgeable in the area of single-family residential, multifamily residential, townhome communities. They are sometimes a little blunt in their assessment, but they know their product, they know this market. And the reason they chose the 18 units per acre is they know what will work economically. They know that it's less than the density of other apartments. And in showing you what was in the neighborhood, that did not include the mobile home park right next to this residential community either. There's a mobile home park on the other side. So there's a lot going on here. I appreciate the fact that at least one of our neighbors thinks we should only build single-family residential and build wealth, but our target tend to be nurses, students, and soldiers. And housing is not typically what we would do for our soldiers or for our students or for our nurses. And so we think this is an appropriate commodity for that user. We don't believe it will ruin property values, because if that were true, property values would already be ruined by mobile home parks next door. And at the very front of this development, there's an apartment building, and I've ridden around it looking for a name. It's like the no-name apartment. But literally at the front of this neighborhood is an apartment right there. Not down the street, not a few miles away, right at the front of the neighborhood. So we don't see values changing. They don't change at Wilmington Island, where I showed you the Buccaneer apartments. They didn't change in Jackson Woods, where there are high-density apartments. And it doesn't change in Windsor Forest. I've heard that battle cry before, you know, the sky is falling. But the sky's not falling. Residential and multifamily appear everywhere. If apartments hurt value, then all of downtown Savannah would be hurt, because there's multifamily and short-term vacation rentals right next to single-family residential, and I don't think values have gone down at all. I think what we're seeing, and this has happened before, the last guy on the block sometimes gets penalized. You see development going around, and everybody gets to do their development, their housing, their apartments, their commercial. But the Vickeries have owned this property since the 30s. He said his father bought it, actually, I think he told me in the I want to say 1930, so it's been approximately 90 years. And I suppose he should have developed this sooner. And we'd be sitting here looking at a beautiful apartment building on site. But everything else has grown up around him. So the question now becomes, what do we put here? We'd love to put single-family residential, but it doesn't solve the problems that we're hearing today. We don't want anyone to move. We don't want anyone to leave. But if someone builds single-family residential, that grove of trees is going to be destroyed. That buffer that is enjoyed now is going to go away no matter what goes there. We have to come back for site plans, so whatever we build there, whether it's apartments or anything else, we have to come back and protect the buffer between us and the neighborhood. So I am concerned. We literally don't want anyone to move. We believe that this site plan, which is conceptual, given to you only for illustrative purposes, we show the trees that will stay, and we have every intention of preserving them there. But we can't sit here and tell you that there's going to be a forest next door forever and a day. There's 11 and a half acres. Mr. Vickery would like to do something with this property. This isn't just about his ability to sell. It's about what goes there. And that's why when I reported to y'all and I showed you the language of the 2019 report, it's very clear that the MPC has previously looked at the overall development pattern of the broader neighborhood. And that broader neighborhood demonstrates existing examples of multifamily residential in the vicinity. And that's all we're looking to do. Multifamily, just like throughout Middle Ground, throughout Apache, throughout Mohawk. So with that, we'll again stand down. Again, happy to answer any questions y'all may have. So thank you very much for your time.
This is Jeff Nutrica. Mr. Yellen, quick question for you. Where exactly can you show me is the mobile home park?
There's actually 3 of them.
Okay, where?
Up at the top where it says RMHP,
The one right here is also.
he can't see what you're pointing to.
All right,
RMHP
I see that.
to the north is
No, hold on. I'm
is
sorry.
multifamily.
Interrupt.
Yeah.
For on the other side of Forest Ridge, where it says Middle Ground Road Extension, that is a mobile home park.
Okay.
Do you see that? It looks almost like our property that we're referring to. It's a very long, narrow bowling alley shaped.
Yeah, you've got the aerial.
Yeah, if you could point to it, that'd be great.
But there's 3 of.
Yeah.
It's coming in at an angle. Here
Yep.
we go. Here we go.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where you see Middle Ground Road, and you can see up at the very top of the page, it says Mobile Home Park Drive.
Okay.
So there's one up there, and then below it, there's another one on Middle Ground Road Extension, and there's a, tell me where there's
I kind of need the map.
Oh, I
but,
see it.
You know, there's, I mean,
there's at least 2 to the north, and we believe there's another one, and we can't locate it on this particular map, but.
well, it was identified in the RMH zoning
Right.
also.
Right, but you'll see on this map where it says RMHP, the MH is mobile home.
Got it.
And then at the top of the page where it says RMHP, that's also mobile home.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions? Any discussion? I will add to the fact that, you know, when Georgia Southern took over the campus, it was known to us that 20,000 students would be coming to Chatham County. And that's a lot of students. impacting a community, especially with the nursing school that's been moved to this campus, which was something seriously needed, especially when the 5 young ladies lost their lives on I-16. It was one of Mr. Hinchy's initiatives to get that implemented at the campus here in Savannah. Knowing that whole area was going to grow for apartments, something students can afford, especially in today's market. We all hear on the news each week how much interest rates have gone up on mortgages. Some people can't even barely afford to have a $1,400 home payment. And that's a thing in the past. And it's going to take a while for that to even rebound back to what we're used to a year ago, 2 years ago. And I know 1,400 sounds like a lot for rent, but it's really not. But I'm surprised we haven't seen more of this due to the impact that's coming to that has come to the college and will continue to come to the college. And this looks like a clean plan to me. And when it does get a site plan and we look at what kind of buffer that can be put in there to protect your fence line, ma'am, and the block noise and block view with a nice berm or tree line, I have to feel that that will be done correctly, and that's something we have control over as well to make sure. This is one of the cleanest apartment plans I've seen for 11 acres to make it fit and doesn't look overcrowded. It doesn't appear overcrowded. But I just wanted to implicate the fact of what that impact would do to this area, and which I'm surprised hasn't already happened, but it is on the way to happen with the growth of the college.
Chairman,
Yes.
just a comment. I am a builder. I've developed apartment complexes. And the difference, because I fought the same battle, and I look at it totally different today than I did 20 years ago before I started building apartments. And with an apartment complex, you have one owner. That's the same owner that the investment, and this is probably well over a $10 million investment. So they're going to ensure that it's kept up. They're going to ensure you can't rent it if it, looks like a dump. You just can't do it. So I feel for the residents, but I also know that there is a need. There would not be an investment of this sort if there was not a need for the housing. And I think we need to look at it holistically, the whole neighborhood. I do think it's a clean, like you said, Chairman, and that's my comment.
Any further discussion? I'll look for a motion.
Coles, I make the motion that we approve staff's recommendation for denial.
Second.
We'll go to a vote. Ms. Laureen Bowles?
No.
Mr. Coleman?
No.
Mr. Coles?
Yes.
Ms. Epstein?
No.
Ms. Jarrett?
Yes.
Mr. Noah?
No.
Mr. Notrika?
No.
Mr. Dwayne Stevens?
Yes.
Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Mr. Welch? No. The noes have it.
We got the rezoning. Say it.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
The motion failed, so
Right.
there needs to be another motion made.
Motion to deny staff's recommendation and approve the petition.
I'd second that, Jeff Natrika.
That's what I wondered. We go to a vote again. Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Coles?
No.
Ms. Epstein?
Yes.
Ms. Jarrett?
No.
Mr. Wayne Noah?
Yes.
Mr. Natrika? Mr. Dwayne Stevens?
No.
Mr. Welch, yes. Motion passes. So therefore, ma'am? So therefore, the motion's passed that we, this will go to the city for the same argument.
Oh, no, nothing's over there. Court already got it. It's over there.
I just was gonna tell them the city will probably contact them.
Next item is number 18, amendment to a previously approved plan, 5525 Abercorn Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a petition to amend a previously approved plan for property at 5525 Abercorn. It is a property known as the Abercorn Walk Shopping Center. The intent of the amendment is to update the plan to reflect changes to the site that occurred as a result of road widening on White Bluff Road and to decrease the overall parking count, which would allow for a new outdoor patio area. This is a site plan that shows the property as it exists essentially today. Abercorn Street is to the east here. This is Janet Drive, and this is White Bluff Road. The property includes approximately 69,000 square feet of retail space, along with the associated parking and infrastructure. And the center has operated continuously since it was approved in 2004, built shortly thereafter. As a part of that development, some of the standards included a 15-foot development setback along White Bluff Road. Particularly in this location, the widening of White Bluff Road has caused this side of the property to encroach into that setback now. It also originally required 331 parking spaces throughout the center. 334 spaces were provided, so there was surplus. They met the standard at that time. The applicant's updated plan, as shown here, is proposing to eliminate 5 parking spaces in order to provide an outdoor patio area here, which currently are those 5 parking spaces. During the 2004 review process, the plan was found to have met the various development standards, including parking, buffers, landscaping, height, setbacks, et cetera. The center has operated under those parameters since that time. Improvements that took place to White Bluff Road has created this nonconformity as it relates to the required setback at this location. And staff finds that the proposed changes are minimal and no operational functions will be affected by the reduction of the parking spaces or the proposed variance to the setback. So with those findings, staff is recommending approval of the amended plan and the variances that are requested by the applicant.
Is the applicant here? No. Mr. Yellen,
Yes,
how you
sir.
doing, Mr. Yellen?
Chairman, did staff receive any comments from the public?
Mr. Noah, we did receive one comment, but it was related to signage at this location, which is not part of what they were reviewing today, but we did keep that file, that comment for the official record.
Thank you all, and happy to answer any questions that you may have. But just to clarify one item, this petitions similar to this are probably going to keep coming back to y'all over and over again with Nuzo. When all of these shopping centers were developed along Abercorn, they were planned business commercial, so each one of them has a master plan. So now as new owners are coming in, anytime they want to make even minor changes to the site, it's going to require a master plan approval process to make even what we think is minor changes or a variance that was outside of our control. But the new owner is trying to go out and get financing. Whenever lenders see a zoning report that says a shopping center is non-conforming, they are reluctant to loan any money. So that's the nature of our request. And while we were here, they had the plans to reduce the parking by 5. The site's still compliant with all City of Savannah parking requirements. There's still an excess of parking on the site. They just want to provide another amenity for tenants. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Yellen?
I got one. Couldn't you have done this through the zoning board?
Yes and no. Because the master plan was approved, any changes to the master plan need to come back to MPC.
Okay.
Any other questions? I just have one that really are these locals that bought this? I don't need to know a name, I'm just curious.
I want to say Jacksonville, so
Okay,
local adjacent.
just curious.
Right.
Just curious. Any further questions? Make a motion?
Coles make the motion to approve staff's recommendation for approval.
Stevens, second.
Ms. Bowles, did you have a question?
No,
Okay.
I'm ready to vote.
We'll just do a verbal vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you. Next is election of officers. You got that one figured out, Wayne? Election of officers? Ma'am, election of officers? It's been a long day. Been sitting there with a migraine from hell.
The nominating committee submitted their report at the last meeting.
Okay.
There were 2 slates. That we had one from the nominating committee, and then there were, I believe, 2 from the floor. I'd rather you read that out of the record than me repeat
I
it.
don't have that in front of me, but
The nominating committee submitted, here we go.
I know we're behind on doing
Dwayne Stevens for chairman, Travis Coles, vice chair, Tom Wywoody, secretary, Elizabeth Epstein, treasurer. And then from the floor, there was a nomination for Joe Welch for chairman, Wayne Noah vice chairman, Tom Wywoody secretary, and Elizabeth Epstein as treasurer.
Can I ask a point of clarification? Yeah, I believe the first set of officers had me as the secretary, also not vice chair.
Yeah. Travis is vice chairman.
I'm just reading what the report says.
I see on the slate one is Dwayne Stevens, chairman, Travis Coles, vice chair, Tom, secretary, Elizabeth Epstein, treasurer. And then on the second is Joe Welch, chairman, Wayne Noah, vice chairman, and Tom, secretary, and Elizabeth Epstein, treasurer. Yeah. I thought you said Tom, vice chair on the first slate.
That is correct.
How did you pull that up?
A question for clarity, Chairman. Are we electing a slate or are we electing each office?
Well, that's a good question.
I don't believe in the past we've done a slate.
We haven't.
They were individual offices. Correct me if I'm wrong. Staff.
That's correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, I personally feel that we should request ballots because I want my vote to be my vote, and that's that. So I'm not voting in the open.
Okay,
Matt, so how y'all want to do this?
I got a piece of paper.
Piece of paper? Write down what you want. Who's going to count it? Ma'am? Can I have half?
There you go. Here's what you have. Pick for chair and vice chair.
Excuse me, Chair. Chair. Mr. Welch.
To keep it simple, I would vote for the chair first. I'd vote for each one individually. With separate pieces, if you need some additional paper,
I'll take it.
there's some paper.
Looks like we're doing right away. So we're just doing paper at a time?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good. You need two people. You and her. I'm going home to put an ice pack on my neck. I'm trying to call my masseuse. She can't be there until next week.
Chairman, for clarity, we're voting for chair,
We're voting for
and the
the
option is
the chair,
Mr.
option
Dwayne.
for chair and vice chair. The other two have nobody running against them.
Right, but right now, we're just voting for chair, and it's Dwayne Stevens and Joe Welch, correct? Thank you.
Or we can just do the whole tally. Okay.
That's the way we've always done it.
I put both of mine on one piece of paper. I put mine on, yeah.
What are the choices for vice chair? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. It's too late to buy votes. All bets are off. I missed my doctor's appointment of, and a doctor's appointment of 4 too. Shit.
I'm supposed to pick up the truck. I had a Charlotte class. You'll get the text me saying it's ready, but it's at Savannah 20, then they close at 6, so I might just make it. It looks from
Hit that trimming you will.
yeah. Although this time of day, it's kind of iffy.
I'm not even a young guy anymore. Oh, man.
Migraine.
Oh, my God, it's killing me. It's like a vice grip tightening my head. Hadn't had one this bad in a long time. At one point, I felt nauseous, like I was going to throw up during the meeting. That's how bad it got.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I hate them.
They're miserable. I would get it too. I haven't had one in a while. Yeah, well, it's not a bad one.
Fake news.
Remember that?
It used to pop up on the projector.
And you always knew who was the one that was like.
Right.
Yeah.
somebody would accidentally exit out of the program.
Right. That was the crazy.
That's the one, yeah, now it's clicking too many exits. Yeah.
What I'd like is to get engagement more because I was. Yeah. Sometimes I don't pull this up and then I'm showing what I need to see up here.
And then by the time you find it, they already gone, they already moved on.
I like that. As long as at least here.
This is an option. HDVR, we don't have that anymore. It's like you just sit and look at whatever they show. Like I
No, I requested
I
these.
either bring an iPad or something like that.
I requested these where we had to pull stuff up. Give them to the chairman.
We've got the vote.
You want me to read it?
Yes, the chairman should read.
Okay, after reading the votes, the vice chair will be Travis Coles, and the new chairman will be Dwayne Stevens.
Good job.
Motion to destroy the ballots.
Yeah. Need to destroy the ballots.
Second.
We can always burn them like they do in Rome.
Chairman, I make a
Yeah.
motion. I make a motion that the.
Wait a minute. We're not finished. You have to read the new slate. I mean, the new officers. Right,
We haven't voted on it.
right.
Okay.
Don't exempt the secretary and the treasurer.
That's why I was making a motion.
All right,
Do you want me to make one?
go ahead.
I make a motion that we receive Tom Wywoody and Elizabeth Epstein by acclamation.
Second, Coleman.
Second, but you may want to specify the positions.
Tom Wywoody, secretary. Elizabeth Epstein, treasurer.
Second, Coleman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. And everybody have a blessed week. And
Motion
thank
to
you for
adjourn.
your service. This meeting's adjourned.